Hello, everybody. This is Mithril Zenith, and yes, we are back again with a tier list. It's a map tier list. It's finally time that I got around to Path of Radiance. Let me turn on the music here. And, there's a lot of people in my community that turns out don't really like Path of Radiance or is not as much of a fan of it as I am. And so, really, to truly show the Teleus bias here, I invited Elut, friend of the channel here. How you doing, man?
Dude, I'm doing great. Imagine not liking Path of Radiance. That's crazy.
I know, right? And one of my favorite things about Path of Radiance is the maps. And it's why, even though some people complain about the slow gameplay, or they complain about, it being easy, I think the maps in Path of Radiance really lift it up, and to the point where it's like, it saves the gameplay for me, where it otherwise would drag and be slow or too easy. But before we get going, anything you want to drop in about the game?
Uh, I just want to say that Ike is the GOAT. That's all. That's all I got.
That's fair. I mean, if you want to see, if you want to hear Elit's real thoughts on Path of Radiance, I should be linking it in the description below. He recently put out not a review per se, just like a kind of a talking about the game and your memories and experiences with it, and why you like it.
Yeah, I've been talking about this game a lot recently. And that was one of the things I mentioned was that even though it's easy, like most of the maps, keyword most, are actually very good. They have fun objectives that even if you're experienced, like you can play in a way that isn't boring. So I love this game. I really do.
Yeah, definitely. And this is going to be a little bit of a cozier video. I'm under a blanket. I have a little cup of tea with me right here, and so it's gonna be a nice, relaxing, however long, you can see how long the video is.
Yeah.
Without
I'm drinking tea too, actually.
Oh,
Let's go.
nice. Got a
Same
little
wave.
rooibos here. It's just really nice and sweet. Anyway, so every Fire Emblem's got to start somewhere, and we start with the prologue. Ike versus Boyd, and then Ike versus Grail. Um, all in all, I rate prologue maps not based on how, like, as a map, but I actually rate them a little bit differently of like, okay, does this teach me the things I need to know to play the game in, how does it do that? Is it effective? Does it make me like actually start getting a feel for the game, or is it just like, oh, press 3 buttons and we're done? Why is this even a map? And I think that this, I mean, map tier wise, I'm not going to put it above like C tier, but I think this is a pretty good prologue map, personally. It
I mean,
introduces you to the weapon triangle, it introduces you to moving and attacking, it introduces you to using items, using a vulnerary. If you don't use a vulnerary, you will die.
you will die. Yes, you will
I
die.
have failed on the map before because I just was like, we'll just attack, it's fine, and forget to use the vulnerary. Yeah.
I mean, I feel like you could maybe put it low B. I don't know if you're ranking within tiers. I don't know that really matters, but
We'll see how we feel once we put some more stuff on the list.
okay. But yeah, like Prologue, I feel like is one of the better tutorials in the series. Like with how simple it is, without like bugging you about little things. It's not like guided button presses. It just teaches you like the most basic part of combat in a way that's naturally bound to the story. You know what I mean? Like no one's telling you to like click different options on the actual game, breaking the fourth wall or something.
Yeah.
Like it's just like, oh yeah, go fight Boyd, beat him up. It's like, okay, I'll do that.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just, I don't know. I love how simple it is and how much it teaches you, especially for like if this is your first game, without saying too much.
Yeah, definitely. If you want handholdy, fourth wall breaking tutorials, they actually have a section in the menu of those. That's where Anna
Yeah, they
appears in
do.
Path of Radiance. She's the
Yeah.
tutorial girl. But yeah, I really appreciate that it at least lets you move where you want to, even if there's like no point. I like that it allows you to do that, and so it's not forcing you to do only these specific things. Because I think oftentimes, and this is a problem I get into with tutorials in other games, when you're just pointing an arrow at the thing I need to do, I'm not processing, okay, this is how I do this thing. I'm processing, I'm clicking where you're telling me to go, and then I'm going to be lost in 5 minutes when I have to do it myself.
Yeah, no, exactly. That's like a horrible way to teach anything
Mm-hmm.
because like it's just like you don't explain why you're doing anything. It's just telling you to do it. You say, "Okay, I I don't get what the point of any of that was. You know what I mean? You don't really learn. So I don't know. I think it's one of the better tutorials in terms of like the grand scheme of Fire Emblem for like someone who's newer. But I don't know. B or C, I think is fine.
Yeah, yeah. There are plenty more good maps that I think the tutorial will look out of place if we leave it too high. Also, for these map images, I just wanted to say real quick, we were initially going to do a Path of Radiance tier list earlier, but these were not easily available. And then someone updated Fire Emblem WOD and included these, and so I just image ripped them down, and now we have them.
Yeah, no, that's super nice. That's super nice.
So, Chapter 1. I think this is a pretty solid map for a first chapter. You have threats, you have the brigands going for the houses, you have the farthest away house that you can actually get to, has that Seraph robe. It really teaches you to rely on all of your units, because Titania can rush ahead, but you gotta make use of Oscar Boyd and Ike in order to still survive while she's away doing stuff. She can't take all the aggro because of the way the enemies are positioned, and because the way that brigands work in FE9, where they will, unless their way is entirely blocked, they will rush to the house and ignore your units.
Oh yeah. Yeah, you have to be a couple places at once. And the thing that I like about chapter 1 is like, yeah, you could solo it with Titania, but it's not because like you need her to. You know what I mean? And it's not like Oscar Boyd and Ike are so scrubby that you need her to. So in that way, it also kind of incentivizes you to use everybody because it's not like too risky. You know what I mean?
Yeah, all your units, even Ike, even Boyd, can 1v1 and win, assuming they don't get horrible RNG. But using those units more effectively, teaming up and trying to, funnel kills to who you want to train, or just teaming up to take down more enemies faster, it's teaching you these skills without like forcing you. It's not going to be like, oh, it's Awakening Lunatic mode. If you don't play, this one script, you're going to die. It's like, yeah, no, even on hard mode, it's not nearly that hard. But it's still challenging enough to really like activate your brain and make you think of where you're placing your units. And it's chapter 1, so.
Yeah. I think A is pretty solid. I don't really have too much to say beyond that, but it's a solid map.
Yeah, definitely. And we're going to be saying that about a lot of maps. Chapter 2. This one is a little bit rougher for me. Like, I'm not exactly sure where to put it. You're put into a situation, you have Oscar Boyd and Reese, but you don't get Titania until, like, turn 3. Boyd died because he suffered from success in my Iron Man. That's just, that happens.
Yeah, it does happen.
You're put into a weird situation on this map where you are basically asked to... I think there's a little bit of a... And this is not saying the map is bad. I think there's a little clash with the narrative. Like, narratively, okay, yeah, you need to... you want to rush to the house, but playing the chapter, you have to stay in the corner, stay defensive, because you're surrounded. And so it's kind of hard, especially when it's like, okay, here's the first map where you're asked to really be defensive, but it's totally wide open. There's no chokes, there's no limiting anything. You're surrounded. If you try to, block the choke on the right with the forest, well, there's still enemies from behind, from above, that'll get you. And so it puts you in a hard position, but it's not a hard position that I usually feel like I have the tools necessary to overcome at that point. It's just a lot of, okay, hide in the corner, wait, and hope that I'm not going to, like, kill 3 enemies on enemy phase and die. So I think this is one of the weaker maps in the game. Not horrible by any means, but I definitely think it's on the weaker side.
Yeah, I mean, I know we're not really talking about like story or anything. This is just gameplay. I just will say I love the story setup of this chapter a lot. I felt like that was the first chapter where something like almost got real, if that makes sense.
Yeah. And I like the way that they take away your Jagan for a couple turns, because, like, okay, if you totally relied on Titania, figure out how to work without her.
Yeah, no, it's kind of cool, because it's like, yeah, the characters were being reckless, so now the player has to, like, sort of deal with it for a couple turns. You know what I mean? I don't know.
Yeah.
I think that's kind of cool, but it's not too bad. I mean, like, if you've never played it before, you might play it a little slower. You might hold Riz in the corner behind Oscar Boyd and Ike. You can run up, though. Like what I usually do is I just send Oscar like straight up north, and he can solo that whole crew.
Hmm.
You just have to kill the Myrmidon with the Vaughn before they pass it around and heal themselves or something, and
Oh,
then
yeah.
send Ike and Boyd to the right. So you can do that, but I almost wonder if I would love this map more if it was like if it had like some kind of time constraint. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah,
if it was
that
like
could be
get
like,
there in 5 turns
you
or
know,
something or
kill
four
boss
turns.
within, kill boss within. It's chapter 2, so like 8 turns I think would still be, because that's, a lot of movement that you need to do in order to get there. But yeah, kill boss in like 8 turns or something, to 8 to 10, I think would be a perfectly fair turn count where it's not super restrictive, but, and then also that gives you extra, relief when it's like, okay, Titania's here, everything's gonna be fine.
Yeah, no, for real. If you were panicking before,
Hmm.
then you're like, oh, thank God. But yeah, I think that's like the main thing when I think about this map, like objectively. I just feel like this was a perfect opportunity to have like more of a sense of urgency. Because even in
Hmm.
chapter 1, you have like a sense of urgency with the Seraph Robe house.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I don't know. It's okay. It's okay.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. Debating C or B then. I guess we'll see what other maps pop in. I definitely am one who constantly adjusts their tier list while I'm sorting out other stuff. I'll just like,
Oh, me
I'll throw
too.
this up, I'll throw this down.
Yeah, for
Speaking
sure.
of which, I'm not a huge fan of this next map.
Oh, D tier.
I don't know if D tier, maybe C tier. Maybe I need more tiers at this point. Um, Maybe
Just
we'll
put
do
the
something
whole
like this
alphabet.
because it's just like, uh, it's it just feels weird to me. The units you're given, it's Ike, Titania, Shannon, and Gatry. And do you have Reese? I don't think you have Reese.
No, no, no. Just those four.
Yeah, which is a weird crew because it's like, okay, Ike and everyone who doesn't gain experience.
Yeah, pretty much.
And so it's
And
like,
steals your
okay,
kills,
yeah.
Shannon.
And so it's like, okay, you can't reliably set up kills because, Sniper Crit is going to take Titania's just going to one round things, and Gatry can't deal enough damage for Ike to finish off. It depends. You can kind of combine it.
Yeah.
Um, the AI is weird here because there's like a line you cross where it's like nothing's going to happen, and then you cross this line, and then everything happens.
Yeah.
But the map doesn't explain it to you. But then again, this is also kind of a little bit of an intro in some ways to that, because Path of Radiance loves its random boundary lines of you cross this line, something's happening now,
Oh
regardless of
no,
whether
they
it's
do.
enemy phase or player phase or what.
Yeah, they do that a lot. We'll talk about that more in like chapter 17 and stuff.
Oh
But
yeah, no, I was thinking like chapter, was that 7 or 8? I want to say is the
oh,
big one
7,
with
yeah, 7
Patrine.
does.
Yeah,
Yep, yep, yep.
where it's like, okay, it doesn't matter if it's the first move or the last move or somewhere in between in your player phase. If you cross that line, stuff is happening immediately.
Yeah,
And this
yeah.
is your intro to that, kind of. I forget if Marcia spawns when you cross the line or if it's the phase change
I'm
after you
pretty
cross the
sure
line.
it's you cross the line and end your turn.
Okay,
She comes in.
that makes sense. You have to talk to her, otherwise you don't get her, as also I figured out in my Iron Man.
Yeah, I remember that.
Oh, that was like the accidentally most scuffed Fire Emblem run I've ever played, which
Yeah,
is,
no, I remember I was in the chat. I'm like, rip Marcia. And you're like, what? What do you mean? I'm like, bro, you forgot to talk to her. And you're like, oh.
yeah, I was so worried about, okay, am I gonna get this kill with Ike, that I totally forgot Ike has to talk to her. The
Yup.
fact that it's obvious, it's a green unit, you want to talk to her. Ike has a comment in the chat of like, hey, who's that? Or something
Yeah.
like that. But at the same time, it's like, okay, well, if you don't talk to her, then 6 chapters later you don't get one of the best units in the game. So
Yep, yep.
congratulations. I This map just gives me weird vibes of like, it really shows that a 4-man squad consisting of an armor knight, a sniper, a paladin, and your lord doesn't really have much cohesion.
No, it doesn't. But that's it. I think it's higher than where you put it for me personally. I would put it over chapter 2. Cause like
That's fair.
there
Chapter 2 is a little.
Yeah, well, because like also chapter 2 we forgot to mention, or maybe we did, I forgot. But chapter 2 is a route map. Blech. This is a defeat boss map, so already it's improved. There's a sense of urgency with Marcia, which I do like. Um,
I
and
kind
I
of
feel like that already puts it above chapter 2, like at the very least. But I don't know. I like it. I like it. I've never really had those experiences either of like you cross the line, Marcia comes in and like instantly dies. Like
Yeah,
I've
it's a
heard some people
very
have
low
had that
percent
happen.
chance that that happens, and it only really happens if you cross the line and then like canto back, and you have no one in range of these pirates, because then they'll cross the bridge back up to attack her. That's the only time that she can really die in turn one. Other than that, it's like you have
Yeah.
to get super unlucky. Um,
Yeah, cuz like if you cross the line turn 1, everybody on that boat will attack her. But if you cross the line like turn 2 or later, some of the people on the boat have moved down at least out of range of like attacking her. So she'll be attacked by like the 3 normal culprits. It's like a
mhm.
Myrmidon and like 2, like a hand axe pirate and a hand axe fighter who have awful accuracy. And she'll normally heal herself. Like I have to give Marcia credit as an NPC. She will heal herself. You know,
Mhm.
there's been plenty of examples in Fire Emblem where like the recruitable character does not heal themselves and they just get killed.
Yeah, she's
Um,
on stationary AI as well, so she won't run off to a random corner where you can't talk to her.
yeah, no, that's good too.
Mhm.
Imagine that. Oh God, that
Yeah,
would be awful.
something else. Fiora says hi. Well, I guess you recruited with another flyer. Doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Something else though that I will say, because you said that this is a kill boss map and chapter 2 is a route map. I feel like
Hmm.
those things should be swapped. Those objectives should be swapped, because
Yeah.
like chapter 3, you're being hired to clear out the pirates. Chapter 2, you want to get into the house,
Yeah,
and
no,
so it's
chapter
like,
two's personal. Like, kill the boss man. Like,
hmm,
you're right. I feel like if they were switched, like, it would make more sense narratively. That's
yeah.
kind of funny.
Anyway,
Yeah.
uh, I think these maps are both, they're not bad, but you know, they're lacking a bit, especially with that. The limited team squad is. Tellius did a lot of this experimenting with, okay, what if we limit what units you can use in a chapter, and that actually provides for a lot of texture, a lot of
Yeah.
a lot of enjoyable texture, but also some off rocky points like this, where early maps always feel a little bit like, we don't have a full team yet, it's a little bit scuffed. These maps, like, they give you a unit and then they take a unit away, and it's just like, well, I feel more scuffed now.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I do think if, like, chapter 3 had the normal crew of, like, Ike, Titania, Oscar, Boyd, Riz, I think it would feel better to play, oddly enough.
Yeah,
Because,
introducing you
like,
with an armor knight and a sniper, it just feels like a very awkward team.
yeah, it's very weird. It's very weird.
Yeah,
But
like
overall, I don't think it's bad. I like playing it when I
mhm,
get to it. I'll
that's
just say
fair.
that.
Like I said, it's also the team that doesn't gain experience plus Ike.
Yeah,
So that
yeah,
also
yeah.
makes it feel bad. Of like, I'm playing an early map in a Fire Emblem game. I want to see the level up screen, please.
Wait a minute. This game gives you 3 Jagans? That's
Apparently,
what it feels like.
yeah. Another map that is welcome to difficulty. Uh, do I put it in? Oh, we'll talk about it. I'll just leave it here for a second. Chapter 4. Your introduction to Soren. Probably the worst introduction to a squishy mage. You
Yep.
are in an open field surrounded by enemies who are going to kill you. And by the way, these red dots, I think these are taken from, like, easy or normal. I think there's, like, at least twice as many red units on hard.
Yeah, yeah, I think you're right, because the hard has like 1 or 2 extra archers, I believe, like
Hmm.
down in the south. So I do think you're right.
Yeah.
Um,
This map definitely teaches you how to take advantage of the enemy's targeting, particularly how to take advantage of how freaking bulky Shannon is with Provoke.
oh yeah.
Because it's like, secret savior of Chapter 4, Titania is fine. Oscar is, still not super defensive by this point. Shannon. Shannon can tank.
He can tank and dodge.
As
Crazy.
as I've put
And will steal your kills.
Yeah, it's fine. Well, no, you put him in a bush, he gets surrounded by all the melee enemies who attack him, gets provoke. Um, And then he just is a distraction because he has 40 HP and 12 defense. Nothing's
Yeah.
killing him. Shannon is the armor knight. Shannon is the Jagan of the game. I think I put that in a video before.
Yeah, you probably have.
Yeah, Shannon is in. The feeling of Shannon as the Jagan is like, yeah, Shannon's the distraction. I call him Tellius's most punchable face, and this map is why. Because
Over Makalov? That's a hot take.
yeah, it depends. Maybe not most punchable face, but he has
Okay.
provoke. Okay,
Up there, yeah. All right.
he has an archer with provoke. You can't get more like attractive to the enemy than that.
Oh yeah, no, all the fighters and stuff are foaming at the mouth. Yeah, for sure.
Anyway, I don't really know where to put this map exactly because it's like it's a tense map, but it's not really a fun map. There's nothing else really to do on it. It's kill boss, I want to say.
Yes, it is kill boss.
But it's one of the few maps where there's no side objectives. It's just you fight the enemy in an open field, and so I think it's definitely one of the weaker maps in the game. It's not horribly unfun to play, but because it's like, hey, you have all these fragile units and you're surrounded, it's a step up from Chapter 2 where it's like, no, you're surrounded by enemies that actually pose a threat to you, and you have more squishy units than before.
Yeah, no, and like I do think out of the maps we've talked about thus far, this is my least favorite one, like for sure. The criticism that you had about Chapter 2, where it was like you kind of feel like you're stuck in a corner a little bit. I kind of get that, but I also like half disagree because you don't have to be stuck in the corner. This one really feels like you have to be stuck in the corner because Soren can't take more than one attack, and there are simply too many enemies to just like run forward with like Gatry and Titania or something to like attract all of them.
Yeah.
So it's like you kind of do have to play in just like a death ball until they all clear out, and then from there, after like 5 turns or something, you can actually play the game. And even though it's a defeat boss, it's like it feels like a route map anyway. I really don't like it.
Yeah, that's fair. I think this might be our first D tier map. Something I will say as well is that this is the first real instance, like you felt it before in the earlier maps, but like this one really, you feel it. Units in Tellius are bulky.
Oh my god, yeah.
And because this is the first map you're fighting enemy cavaliers, they do not die. Like, even Titania can't one-round these things with her steel axe, and so it's like, yeah, no, you cannot just fight your way through. You can't reliably kill multiple enemies on the enemy phase, especially because if you weaken them, they will always trigger healing AI, and because I think either the boss or one of the units next to the boss has a vulnerary, they'll all retreat to the boss to get that vulnerary.
Oh no. No, they love the vulns and the stupid heal hedges. That's the one funny part about this map is like, I think on average, like Ike will 4-shot all like the soldiers, like the halberdiers or whatever. And that one takes forever. But 2, if you get them to like 5 HP, you'll probably have like several of them all at once at 5 HP. They will all run to the single heal bush in the top middle of the map. It's hilarious.
You're gonna start feeling like you're, FE7 Vitus Wyverns. They're all just gathering around the one random tile.
No.
I'm peaking my mic, actually. I need to turn that down. Wow. Didn't expect that. Okay.
Also, I might be tripping, but are there calves in this map? I thought there wasn't.
I think on a hard mode, there's like 1 or 2. There's not a lot. Most of the units are soldiers. There's a couple archers. I feel like there's 1 or 2 calves, but maybe there's not. Maybe
I don't
there's...
think there is.
Maybe calves
There's, like...
only... No, yeah, you're right. I think the first calves are in Chapter 5. Where there's like only a couple.
5. Yeah.
But
Yeah,
Chapter
this
4, it has Armor Knights, Soldiers, Archers, and like one Cleric by the boss.
Yeah, the boss is an Armor Knight. It's mostly halberdiers, or well, halberdier is like the promoted class, but the soldiers. There's one like hammer fighter, and then like 3 or 4 archers around there. Yeah. So everything's like way too bulky. And for once, Gatry actually takes damage because of the hammer fighter.
Yeah.
It's only like 6, but like still, that's something.
Yeah. Double effectiveness. Woo.
Yeah. Woo.
Anyway, let's talk about a good map. Or a map... a divisive map, how about that? Because, welcome to a defend map that, in hard mode, has Fog of War.
True. Only in hard mode.
Only in hard mode, though I feel like thematically this is one of the maps that makes the most sense to have Fog of War in.
Yeah.
Because, I don't know, maybe it's just me. Fog of War is a divisive topic. I've stated that I don't mind Fog of War. I actually really like Fog of War on defend maps. Because defend maps, you're kind of aiming to be defensive anyway. It's a risk to, charge out and kill the boss. You're meant to kind of be more held back. I think Fog of War makes sense because Fog of War encourages you to hold back, stay together, cluster, defend these choke points, whatnot. Plus, thematically, the whole point is, hey, it's dark, they're coming under cover of night, they're, being silent so you can't hear how many there are, they have you surrounded. It makes sense.
Yeah. I don't know that I have a preference as far as, objectives with Fog of War.
Mm-hmm.
I, in general, like Fog of War. I know, as you said, that's, a divisive topic or whatever, but I usually think Fog of War is, kind of fun. And if it isn't fun, it's, inconsequential. Like, if I already know the map, the Fog of War doesn't matter.
Yeah.
But okay, we're gonna have this same problem when we talk about Chapter 8. I like this map, but I also just kind of view it as, an eye roll. And this is a personal problem, because I know how easy it is to just do nothing on this map, and it's only 6 turns. And I know that's not the intended way to play it, but I know that kind of ruins the experience for me personally. But overall, I think it's fine. The Fog of War makes sense, especially how they set it up with, do you hear that outside? And they're like, no, I don't hear anything. It's like, that's the point, doofus. We're surrounded. Yeah. It's like, that's kind of cool.
Yeah, I mean, no one should ever complain that FE9 doesn't have at least some moments of really good writing that is like, okay, we're building out the world, but it also feels like, hey, I'm learning about actual, hey, this makes sense, strategy and tactics and whatnot, as they describe it to you. Plus, you have sometimes what I like to refer to as the alignment check of the whole party, where everyone's like, okay, check. Here's, we have the princess, do we turn her in, do we not, what do we do? And everyone gives their reasoning for why they think they do or don't, and it's like...
Yeah.
We're not talking about the story, but I just have to gush here. It's one of my favorite moments.
No, yeah, go ahead.
It's just one of my favorite moments in the Path of Radiance story is that scene right before this map, because you get to see everyone learning, growing at their finest, talking, giving their opinions, building up a strategy. Grail takes action, goes off to block an entire route himself. It's like, look, you all blocked the other two. Map-wise, I think the 6-turn limit is actually a really strict requirement if you want to kill the boss and get the... Is it an Asher icon he has?
It is an Asher icon, yeah.
Yeah,
so it's a pretty terrible reward, honestly.
It's not a fantastic one, but it's it's still something. It's basically a slightly worse blue gem.
Yeah, but you also have to consider, too, it's a stat booster for a stat that generally isn't good in a game that gives you heaps and heaps of money at all times. So it's I don't know. I don't remember the last time I actually killed this boss.
During certain parts of the game, you actually are strapped for cash a little bit, or can be, if you're forging all the time.
The preps of, Chapter 8, you definitely are down bad for money.
Mm-hmm.
But I find that you don't really need, too much. And then I think it's Chapter 9... you get a big bonus from Gallia. It's 20k or something ridiculous.
Yeah.
So even then, it's not for very long. But I don't know. I don't love this map. I don't hate it.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't get me excited.
That's fair. I like it more than chapters 2 and 3. But that's also kind of just me. I don't think it's an A-tier map, but I think it's fine. It's pretty solid. It's a well-designed defend map that, both for good and bad reasons, is a little too short.
Yeah, that makes sense. I think I would personally put it like bottom of C, but you're putting it above them, so like maybe we can
We can
compromise. Like
compromise and be
top of
like
C
top of
is
C,
fine.
yeah.
That's fine.
I guess we're
It's
tiering within
fine.
tiers because we only have 5 tiers.
Yeah, I guess we are.
I might open up a sixth tier. We'll see.
Okay. All right.
We'll see if we have any more maps that we think are just absolutely awful. Chapter 6. It's the stealth map where if you leave the forest, then it activates the enemy AI. Otherwise, enemy is on fully passive AI before that.
Yep.
How do you feel about stealth?
I mean, Path of Radiance does stealth better than Fates does, at the very least.
Oh yeah,
Fates stealth
Fates
is
had this.
awful.
Fates has, stealth maps, air quotes stealth maps, that I'm like, okay, cool. I'm thinking of, the Path of Radiance, jail map. And it's like, no, you just have to kill the unit and then all the things spawn anyway. It's like, well, what's the point?
Yeah.
Or you can just use a lock touch unit and just, like, only use them. And it's like, and then at the end of the map, you spawn everything anyway. What's the point?
Yeah, no, like that blew my mind with the one Revelations map with like the red and the blue doors.
Mm-hmm.
Because I was thinking like, all right, as long as I'm out of range of the enemies, like on my turn, they won't see me. Because that's how it works in FE9, like in the prison map. But no, if they end their turn in range of you, you get spotted. It's like, oh, okay. That sucks.
Yeah, and how are you supposed to know where they're going to move without waiting a couple turns to scout them out?
Yeah.
Anyway,
No,
we're not talking about awful maps of
I know.
Revelations. We're talking about pretty good maps in Path of Radiance.
Yeah, no, I like this map.
Yeah.
I do like this map. It's your first escape map, which is always fun.
Mm-hmm.
It's basically sees. This is not like Thracia escape. If you escape with Ike, the map ends. You just get a little bit of bonus XP if you escape with other units first.
Mm-hmm.
I do like that it is consistent. Like even if you run out of the forest and then back in, like with the same movement, they won't spot you. If that makes sense.
Oh, really?
Like,
if you canto back?
Yeah, exactly. So like, well, I don't know if it
Or
does.
maybe
it
not
if, like,
canto.
you
I think if you attack them, they'll probably notice you. But
Yeah.
like if you move across, like you skip out of the forest in order to get an extra movement tile.
Yeah, exactly. Like if Titania goes straight down and then back over to the left and ends in the forest, they won't move.
Okay.
So that's like kind of funny too. I also like that. I remember somewhere in the dialogue, like they tell you, like, oh, the left side is probably going to be easier. Sneak, like to the left side because that's where all the trees sort of slant.
Yeah.
I just like little things like that. Even though I feel like going the right side is actually easier because if you go the left side, if you go down far enough, that will trigger all of the enemies to move.
And then that bridge just becomes immobile for the next 5 turns.
Yeah, no, for real. So it's like, it's almost easier to go the right side because you just kill more things earlier and then you don't have too much to deal with. But I like it. I like that the boss isn't like a complete pushover either. Titania cannot one-round him for one thing. So it's like, I kind of like that about it too. Like every boss up to this point, except for, I guess like chapter 4's boss, I don't think Titania can one round without like a random crit or something.
Yeah, this is also where you start fighting. A couple of these armor knights have a lot of defense, and so the only way that you can really deal damage to them is either get the hammer that I think one of these guys drops, or...
It was in chapter 5.
Oh, it was the hammer was in chapter 5. Okay. Yeah. Or use Soren. Assuming you haven't killed him off yet.
Well, you say that. You say use Soren, but in practice, usually what that means is like Soren will do like double 6s or something, and then you go Ike, who you expect not to do much, and at least the Regal Sword does like double 10s or double 11s or something. So even then, it's like, oh, this is Soren's time to shine, but it's never Soren's time to shine in FE9.
Soren does a good job of weakening the armor knights. They're the only units he can reliably double without lucky speed growths. And I will say they definitely... Enemies overall in Path of Radiance have an actual resistance stat, and armor knights are a notable exception. And so it does point you in that direction of, okay, let's actually target on their weaker resistance, chip them down, and then finish them off with another unit. And so, again, everything's bulkier in Tellius, makes the mages worse, but you still have opportunities to utilize them, at least when you're forced to deploy them.
Yeah, but no, overall, I actually do really like this map. Even in like scenarios where I've just done the map with like Titania and Ike alone, or even just like Ike on Titania's back, like it's still doable. And I,
Hmm.
I kind of love, and like that sounds like it'd be a bad thing, right? Like that it's like easy, but I kind of like that you can play with a sense of urgency despite like the enemy density in the south.
Yeah.
Because you can choose to play it slow and just kill everything and cover a lot of space, or it's like, all right, let's just gun it down one side, clear everything out, and get to that escape point as fast as possible.
Yeah. And
And
something
I like that.
yeah, definitely. And something you brought up earlier with how they mentioned, oh, you could go down the left side and stay hidden in the forest longer. Path of Radiance does this so much, and I think it's really underrated. The game doesn't utilize in its main campaign a lot of handholdy tutorials, but what it does do is give you tips and hints through the in-game dialogue of, hey, here's a strategy you could try to implement. Here's something you could try to do. And that really kind of teaches the player, gets the player thinking, oh, I could approach the map this way, I could approach the map that way, and gets them to think about how they're moving and using their units, which I think is more important overall. And just another reason why Path of Radiance is a great Fire Emblem to start with.
Yeah, absolutely. I just love that they just like sort of nudge you in a certain direction with a lot of things. They don't bug you about it. They don't force your hand. But it's just like, hey, what if you did this? Just a thought. I love that so much, and it's just like in a natural way that goes with the story and everything. But I think this map is honestly A tier. I'm gonna say it. I think it's honestly A tier.
Okay. One sec, sorry, my daughter's crying a little bit.
It's all good.
Yeah, I definitely think it's, top of B tier, maybe A tier. It's a fun map. It's a nice map. We'll leave it an
I
A
could
tier
go
for
either way.
now, and then we'll figure it out. B's looking a little lonely, but I think we'll find some B tier maps.
We'll find something. Yeah.
Yeah,
Chapter
yeah.
7 time.
B tier for now is a nice place to just like hold the map we're reviewing.
Yeah, yeah. No, I agree.
Chapter 7. You start in the bottom right. Mia spawns right above you, encouraging Ike to go north and talk to her because Grail's like, hey, we're going to need some, to recruit some more people to our team if we're going to be doing this mission properly. Also, by the way, here's a person who mentions Grail and mentions, like, hey, I need to fight with you. Also, you're against the main group of Dayan's army. You have Patrine, which I don't know in this map. I forget if they actually just use her base boss stats that she has in like chapter 23 or if they lower her stats for when she appears. I forget.
I I I'm almost certain you can't even check her stats. Because when she comes
Oh
in is
yeah,
when Grail comes in,
because
and
she's
then she
only
immediately leaves.
yeah, okay, yeah, so she's only on the map. Yeah, yeah, no, that's what it
Yeah,
is.
during
It's
like the
like
cutscene.
because you cross the line, she comes in, like, doubles the number of enemies that are on the map, and then Grail challenges her. They go outside, but the other reinforcements stick around.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
That's how that works. I forgot a little bit. Um, but yeah,
Yeah,
it's an
that's what I'm here for.
interesting. It's definitely the map that a lot of people point to as this is Path of Radiance loves its lines because it
Yeah,
is that one hidden line of like dividing the arena in like a weird like this sort of way where it's like, okay, if you go for this chest and open the door and cross through it, then you're going to trigger it. But if you just stay outside the door, you're not. But if you like cross this bit, then you're going to trigger it. But there's weird movement that you have to do to not trigger the enemies.
yeah,
And then once you do trigger them, you get Gatry and Shannon, which appear in this corner. And Shannon's actually the tanky one. He blocks the doorway, and Gatry hides inside.
yeah, yeah. Because there's actually an armor slayer that will do damage to him. That's
Yeah.
like notable. Um, I
Overall,
think I think this map is just too long. Honestly, I think
that's
it's too long.
that's fair. The map definitely is another one where it's like enemies are bulky, and you don't have the forge yet or anything. You don't really have any tools to really boost your damage. Best thing you get on this map is like, oh, you open the treasure chest and get an armor slayer.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I think the map is fine. The map but I don't think the map is great, and so I will probably leave it in B tier, because you do have enough units that you have options. You have a lot of ways of tackling this map, and depending on who you're training, they can start showing their strengths and whatnot. Like if you have a trained Soren, you can use him to actually take down some of these armor knights. If you have a trained Oscar and Boyd, you can use them to just charge ahead and tank. And so you're starting to get that diversity of what you can do based on who you have and who you've trained, but you're still feeling the tension and the pressure that the map is putting on you to play it within a couple, like a subset of ways.
Yeah, I think initially, like the first couple turns of this map, up through like the first couple turns of when you get Shinin and Gatchery, are pretty fun. I like that there's like a thief spawn in the bottom left, so there is like a sense of urgency to like get to chests and things if you want them. The most valuable one is the Armor Slayer in the top right, which he gets last, but still, I do like that about it. I just think it being a route map when everything is so bulky, and I don't know, like it just drags longer than I think it should, is like the main problem. Like I think it's kind of fun to be like, all right, I'm gonna send Titania down south. She's just gonna roll everything. We're gunning it to the chests with her, and then like Oscar, Boyd, and Ike go up north, recruit Mia, get that first chest, and then Shiner and Gatry come in, and it's like they help out, and it's like it's still fun, and then it's like okay, more reinforcements. Okay, why is this a route map? And it's just like it's just too long.
That's
The
fair.
fun kind of runs out for me at a certain point, but the premise at first I think is pretty decent.
Yeah, I think in some ways it kind of like typifies Path of Radiance for a lot of people, because like it's a fun map. It gets you using like tactical thought and like okay, splitting up your units, having them do different things, and then it kind of just like there's a few too many units. It grinds a little bit slow by the end.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's a solid B tier map overall though, and it's a couple of number adjustments from maybe being an A tier.
Really? That high? Huh.
Maybe, maybe not. I don't know. I'll give it a solid B. I like thinking about this map, and I remember this map more fondly than I do, chapters 2 and 3 and whatnot.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think it's better than chapter 5. But we'll compromise B. I think that's okay.
Okay. Chapter what we're on 8.
Yes, 8.
Trying to remember numbers. The big defend map. The big
This
one.
is the one where Ike breaks the whole fortress with one attack, right?
Yeah, yeah,
That's this
totally. Kind of. This is the big choke point defend map. Chapter 5 has some moments of that, but those are all like 2-tiled wide choke points. This is single tile chokes, but if you want like the items your enemies are carrying, or to recruit Ileana a little safer, without her like attacking. Does she attack you? I forget.
She does not attack you.
She does not attack you, but she will move towards you. Okay.
Yes.
If you want like the boss's stuff, then you're gonna have to risk going out. And this also shows you, because I think in the south it's all Cavaliers. If you're trying to hold that point, you will get hit by the Cavaliers. They will rush and ping off you, and your two biggest defensive tanks, Shannon and Gatry, are nowhere to be found. They've left you.
Yeah.
So congratulations, it's a defense choke point map with your two key choke point holders gone. How are you going to deal with it? Your team is lacking that defensive core for a defend map, and so because of that, I think it actually makes it more interesting than most other defend maps tend to be. I don't know, I always feel at least a little bit level of stress when playing this map.
Yeah, I'll say at the start, I'm very hard on defense maps just in general. Like I just am. And there is a way to cheese this map arguably harder than chapter 5. If you just have like Ike with the Regal Sword at the south entrance, literally anybody on that left choke, like even with the wall, and then someone like Titania on the right side, basically what happens is on hard mode, no one will attack on the left side because the AI movement order, there's an archer that will move before the armor knights, and they will move at one range, so no one will get attacked if you have them even with the wall, which is really funny when you know how to break it that way. And then also, if you have Ike on the south entrance, like one tile back, like as far back as he can be while still blocking it,
Mm-hmm.
I believe it's one of the javelin calves will end up in front of him at the end of the turn. So you can kill him on your turn with the Regal Sword, and then everything else will attack him at 1 range, even if they have 1 to 2 range weapons. So he'll clear it out in like 2 turns, and then the right side is just like the Titania show. So you can cheese it very, very hard. But that being said, I do think, like you said, like taking away like your bigger tanks, both of them, tanks being plural, is kind of interesting. And with like the rain and stuff and the atmosphere of the story, I do think it adds a lot. Like you really do feel like you're kind of in trouble for most of it. It's not something that the game writes in. I really do think on a first playthrough that is what the player feels generally, and I think that's cool. I also like that there are a couple droppables on this map. The boss in the bottom right has the soldier band for like increasing growth rates, and then the priest in the south that will heal the calves has a red gem in like the 1 or 2 chapters that you're actually like low on cash.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I do think this map is overall very good, even though I know how to cheese it like so terribly bad. Like I still really like it a lot.
Yeah, and even if
I
you're
would put it
playing,
above 7.
okay, and even if you're playing on your first playthrough, and you don't have the bands enabled, there's still, you want to get down there to get, to get to the cleric and whatnot, and the boss will aggro somewhat. He's not stationary.
Yes. Yeah, he won't move early enough to a point where he could realistically seize. I think he's like 1 turn off of being in movement range to seize, but he will reach that south entrance by the end, like for sure.
Okay.
Which is also cool, and that helps with like you could have Titania take the right side for the most of it if you feel like you need her there the most, which you probably do, and then you can just kind of have this like last ditch effort in the last couple turns to kill the boss as he's coming down the south, which is cool. So overall, I do like this map.
Yeah, pretty well designed defend map in my opinion. Not sure it really deserves A tier. Quite. I'm kind of debating on that. Because it does have that.
High B.
It does have those moments of like kind of feeling, you are stressed for a turn or two, and then it's just like, okay, now this glut of enemies that I can't kill, they can't get in, but I can't get out, and so just you're stuck for a while. And if you try to push out, then you're just inviting more threat onto yourself of, oh, but you've opened yourself up. It's now a 2-tile wide choke,
Yeah, exactly.
It's that weird case of a map where the more you do, the harder you make on yourself.
Yeah, that's true with most defend maps in general. Like a lot of them have that problem. But I do think even though like I've had some pretty awful experiences with this map, like besides like the cheese strat I already said, like I've played this map several times in the Ike solo playthrough. I've done that several times in FE9 because I'm a idiot. And what that map turns into is just, okay, just stand Ike on the defend tile with no weapons, and he doesn't even take enough damage to like have to heal himself. So you just sit there for 8 turns. Even with all of that in mind, all those bad experiences, I do think this is a really good, fun map overall.
Yeah, and I think based on what we're talking about as well, based on the way you're being like, okay, this is how you solve this map, this is how you solve that one, Path of Radiance definitely is one of the games where it's like, it is trying to encourage you to train your lord as much as it can.
Oh, no, it definitely
does. I'm just thinking, oh yeah, coming into this chapter with a level 2 or 3 Ike, you are going to have the most miserable time.
Oh, yeah, no, that'd be actually really bad. That would not be fun at all.
Because I'm thinking, yeah, I have Ike solo the calves with his Regal Sword. Well, what if your Ike's level 4 and dies to 2 of them?
Yeah, no, that's still better than Boyd with a poleaxe.
Yeah.
That is bad. That is bad. He'll have like hit in the 60s.
Take you seriously when you say that.
And it's just, oh, dude, it's bad. It's bad.
Yeah. Anyway, we've got to get a move on at least a little bit, get to some fun maps before we stop. Chapter 10, we have...
9, yeah.
9? I can't count. Chapter I can't count.
It's all good.
Rolf and Mist join, and you have partner phase for the first time with your Laguz units who don't really know how their Laguz weight gauge works because they will do the stupidest decisions if you leave them to roam. This is a weird map. This map
It is weird.
feels very disjointed. It's like, okay, the goal is to the south and you are in the east. You rush to the southwest. You follow the path, right? Well, you have a talisman and what's the second one? I forget.
It
Is it a pure
might
water
be
or
a
is like some sort of...
restore staff, which is terrible in this game. I'm
Yeah,
pretty sure that's what it is.
something like that. You have those
I'll
up
Google it
here,
while you talk.
in the middle of pirates, who, again, this is FE9 pirate AI. They aren't distracted by your units, and they will just charge and pillage these villages. So you have to preempt them and get there ahead of them, ahead of before they spawn. It's a really weird feeling side objective of like, okay, you pretty much have to send a cav or delay them somehow long enough for Marcia to get here and fly and help if you want her to do that in order to get them. But the beach also... I forget if the beach tiles slow your cavalry or if I'm confusing those with desert
Oh,
tiles.
no, it does. It does. It slows everybody a little bit, except for, like, mages, of course.
Yeah, it's a weird...
Um,
it doesn't slow you as much as desert tiles. It's a weird type of sand tile where it's like units you think would be slowed wouldn't be slowed, but cavalry still gets slowed a little bit.
yeah, I think... I'm just thinking off the top of my head. I'm pretty sure Titania in the beach sand has, like, 3 or maybe 4 move, whereas in the desert she has 2.
Yeah, the beach
It's something
sand,
like
it's
that.
like your cavalry take 2 tiles to move through it, but everyone else is like 1 or maybe like 1.5 tiles. It's some weird thing.
Yeah.
I always feel like it's going to slow me down more than it does,
Yeah,
because it
for
doesn't feel
sure.
like it slows down the enemies nearly as much as I expected to, which is why, I weighted Soren at max range of a fighter and he got one shot. Because I
Yeah,
was like,
no,
oh, surely
this...
he's going to be slowed down by the sand. I'm not a huge
Surely.
fan of this map, and not just because I didn't get Marcia and got Soren killed. It just feels so weird, and like it's trying to be 2 different maps that don't really join together.
Yeah, no, I mean, straight up, like, the whole top half of the map does not matter. Like, a talisman, like, okay, I guess, but, like, a restore staff in this game is one of the most useless things. Like, what are you going to use that for? Toxin in Chapter 17?
And these pirates are
You know what I
strong.
mean? No, they are very bulky.
Because,
They're
especially
very
if you're playing on
bulky.
hard mode, you get like 6 of them, and they can hit, like, they're doing 20 damage a hit and have over 40 hit points.
Yeah, no, they're beefy,
It's
for
like they
sure.
can take Titania on. This is the moment where it's like, okay, is your Jagan falling off? She's not, but it
No, she's
feels like it
not.
a little bit because she's no longer killing pirates effectively.
Yeah. No, I like, in my heart, I don't hate this map
Hmm.
because my favorite unit in the game shows up in it, which is Marcia, and my second favorite unit in the game shows up, which is Rolf.
Yeah, I'm
But
gonna have
like,
to add a
it's
bro
such
below because
a
I think this is a D tier map, but
it's
I
so
can't in good
dysfunctional.
conscience put certain other maps at its same rank.
Yeah, no, and that's fair. Like, it just doesn't make sense straight up. Like, the one thing I'll give it, which is a concept we've touched on already, with the partner phase thing, like, after your turn 1, like at the start of turn 2, you have the conversation with Leith, and she's just like, hey, like, if you need us to do something, like, just let us know. As a way of, like, telling the player, hey, you can tell the partner units what to do vaguely.
Yeah,
You
it's
know what
an
I mean? But,
interesting
like, beyond
introduction to
that,
that mechanic, but it's not great.
yeah, beyond that, it's like, the top half of the map does not matter. It makes no sense, and the rewards are not good. And the unit that you would think would be perfectly suited to help with that, one, comes too late,
Hmm.
and also in her joining chapter, her combat is pretty awful.
Yeah, Marcia doesn't get
So
great combat until after this chapter, and you dump 1,000 bonus experience into her.
yeah, which sounds like, making excuses for a bad unit, but like, she really is one of the best units in the game, just not in this chapter.
And it's like, she's
So,
not like super fragile as a Pegasus Knight. It's not like a Florina special. But it is still definitely she is not strong enough to do everything you want her to yet. She just takes a little bit
yeah.
of time and training to get there.
Yeah. And like she also starts with the Slim Lance, so her damage is awful. It's just bad. But that's why chapter 11 gives you a billion bonus experience.
Yeah. Real quick, I'm just thinking through, looking at all these maps, and I'm like, is there another map that gives you partner units
Uh,
in Path of Radiance?
well, so chapter 11 does when you talk to Braum and Nephany. They turn into partner units.
Yeah, Braum and Nephany do. Kieran doesn't, and Sephiron just
Kieran
sits
doesn't.
there.
Yeah, Sephiron just sits
As,
there,
as
which
I've
is
learned
funny.
from watching another short, if you leave Sephiron's door open and are trying to do the stealth mode, that's going to break stealth.
Yep.
Speaking of which, how do we feel about the jail map?
um,
Unique attempt to create a brand new Fire Emblem experience never before seen.
yeah, I think most people with this map, they just say like, oh, what's the point of all the bonus XP? Like, you may as well just fight everything. You'll get about the same XP anyway.
The point in the bonus XP
I
is that you can
disagree.
funnel it to a specific unit you want.
Yeah, I disagree. I would much rather just rescue Ike with Titania and run to the top and give all the bonus XP to Marcia. That is mostly what I do nowadays. I'll take it and run.
Yeah, so I should probably talk a little bit about how this map works.
Yeah.
For people who aren't fully aware, you have 3 patrolling soldiers. This one who goes up in a 6-point rotation. This one who goes back and forth in, I think it's a 3-turn. Yeah, no, it's actually marked out on this. If you can read pixels for ants. And this one around the square who goes around in every 4 turns, completes his rotation. So it's a 6, 3, and a 4. I've played way too much old school RuneScape right now. I'm just thinking of this as Source versus Garden right now.
Yeah.
Of all the stupid little wisps, like, okay, how many times do you have to get caught to line them up? It's like, you can't.
Yeah, I started playing old school again too. Not to get off topic, but
Yeah, no, we can ramble about that all we want. You have 4 cages of units. This one holds Sephiran, who you don't need to talk to. It's just extra lore. This one holds Nephany. This one holds Braum and Kieran. You have to at least open the door and talk to Braum or Kieran, and open the door and talk to Nephany in order to recruit them next map, but you don't need them to escape. Is that right?
Yeah, that is correct. So you have to talk to Braum and Nephany, or they will not come with you. Kieran, you just have to open the door. Like, that's it. You don't have to talk to him. You can talk with Oscar for a little bit of, flavor dialogue with their whole quote-unquote rivalry, which is pretty funny, but you don't have to talk to him.
Yeah. So the way that the stealth
part about
maps
this is the escape, not having to escape with the recruited units, as you said, though.
Yeah, that is an interesting thing about them. But then it makes it, if you don't escape with them or don't get them to escape, it makes the stealth exceptionally harder because the enemies will then see them. How enemies see them is that if any of these 3 patrolling soldiers, and it's only these 3, are attacked, or you end your turn within their move and attack range, then they will spot you and sound an alarm, which will cause a lot of units to spawn behind your starting position, around this door, and around the escape door.
Yeah, and one thing, just to reiterate something I said before, as long as you are outside of their range on your turn,
Yes.
you're fine. If they move in like 2 tiles away from you, you still have time to run away, and they won't see you. I do think this is a very interesting idea for a map, and the way they did stealth in that way, I think, is much better than some of the alternatives that we mentioned. I do think in terms of story, you could argue like it is weird that you don't have to literally escape with Nephany or Braum. Like, if this was a Thracia map, you would absolutely have to do that, and it would make sense.
Yeah.
I think the only reason they didn't is just to keep it consistent with something like Chapter 6, where they've already told you, like, yeah, if you escape with your lord, just assume everybody else follows. So they just kind of did the same thing here.
Yeah. Something funny to note is that it's only these three soldiers that will sound the alarm. If you go into the boss's room, the boss doesn't care. He
Oh no,
doesn't.
they're bored. They're looking for a fight.
Yeah, he doesn't care. He gives you the first or second master seal of the game.
Yeah, it should
I
be the
I
first.
think
Yeah.
it's the first because you only get like 3 in the entire game because you can level to a 21 and promote that way.
Yeah.
Number of chests here. Also, there's that random chest in the top right, which I think has like a blue gem or something.
No,
Or
it's
is that the
worse. It's a statue
statue
frag.
frag? Yeah, which in this game, con only affects your shove and rescue potential.
Yeah.
And so the only meme to do it is like give it to a foot unit that you're given smite to, and then have them be a smiter. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, so you can either stealth through, not get discovered, and then escape, and then you will get like 700 bonus experience.
Yep.
Is it 700 on hard and like 1100 on normal?
Yeah, it's something
Because
ridiculous
normal
on
gives you
like
like
normal.
50% extra bonus experience compared
Yeah,
to
it's
hard.
something like that. And like you do get a little more for like escaping with your non-lord
Hmm.
units, and if you do happen to escape with the partner units, but it's like 10 per unit or
Yeah,
something.
so
Like
the way that it
it's so
works,
minuscule.
I don't have it in front of me, but it's like the way the bonus experience works, which we'll talk about here because it makes sense talking about bonus experience. Uh, every map is given a soft turn limit for bonus experience. Every turn after that turn limit, you will get a reduced amount of the speed clear bonus EXP. So I think for this map, it's like 13 turns, I want to say, which if you're doing the stealth clear, isn't going to happen unless you have like the optimized route where you only do Titania and Ike and like ignore everyone else.
Yeah. Well,
um,
there is a perfectly mathed out strategy, because I used to do it
for optimal
back when
beat.
I felt like I had more time, where like you recruit everybody and get the max bonus XP.
Hmm.
You just have to basically take Oscar and like Leaf to the boss room, while Ike is ferried around by Titania and has his conversations, and then Marcia carries Volk, I believe.
Yeah, because
And
you
you
also gain
can do
bonus
it.
experience for every unit that's not Ike that escapes first. And some maps give you bonus experience if you deploy fewer units, but this is not one of them.
Yeah, this is not one of them. One thing to mention as well, I almost forgot to say it, is the inconsistency with like not having to escape with your new partner units.
Hmm.
On Maniac mode in Japanese, you do have to do that.
Oh,
Like
that's
you,
fun.
if you want Kieran on your team, he has to reach that escape tile.
I didn't even know he
Uh,
moved by himself.
Yeah, well, he would become a partner unit, I believe, after talking to Oscar specifically,
Oh,
and then
yeah, and
you'd
then
have
you
to do
have
the
to
target.
direct target all the way. That
Hmm.
is exhausting.
Yeah, no, it is. I found that out the hard way on my one Maniac playthrough of this game.
Never again.
Never again. No, I think I stopped. I don't even think I finished. I think I got to like 26 and I
Got the
stopped.
clash. Okay.
Yeah, I'm like, nope, nope,
Anyway,
that's
how do we
enough.
feel about the jail map? Because I'm really torn because I love the concept. I think the execution is only okay, but I think that because of just it's hard to really say. It's like I want to rate this map higher than I know I'm going to because
Yeah.
I don't think it deserves to be rated as highly as I want to rate it. How about that?
No, I get what you're saying. I think it's definitely no higher than B, and absolutely not above Chapter 8
Okay.
at the very least. One other funny thing to mention that you can do, just purely because it's funny, is Sephirin takes no damage because he has the skill Mantle. So
Oh
you actually can
yeah.
just rescue him and drop him like in front of the boss room if you
And
wanted to
he's a
just see something
wall.
funny. Yeah, he's a literal wall. So I don't know. It's funny. That's about it. It's just funny, but
Yeah. And
honestly, I think it's fine where it is though as a
yeah.
map.
I think allowing I at the very least appreciate that they gave you stealth as an option and didn't force it because the stealth route, I've never successfully done the stealth route in this.
Oh, really?
I think I tried. Maybe I did it once, but like
Okay.
it took 40 something turns, and I was just hating life by the end of it. And I accidentally got myself discovered a couple times. I was emulating, so I had save states and whatnot. But it was just
Yeah.
such a slog. I was like, no, not gonna happen.
Yeah. Like basically I view this map in two ways. If you don't do the stealth map, it's like basically another chapter 7.
Mm-hmm.
If you do, then it's over in like 3 or 4 turns, maybe like 4 or 5 turns if you just rescue Ike with Titania and gun it up there.
Mm-hmm.
And you get 7 free levels on Marcia.
Yeah. One thing
So,
else that I want to point out is that in this map, this is the first one, okay, second one with doors. You can bash doors open. You don't have to have a key or a lockpick. But if you bash the door, that will also alert the guards.
yeah, and that makes sense.
Yeah.
Which is why Volk comes in to help you out with that.
50 gold a lock.
Yeah.
So let's talk about a map that I love.
Oh, so good. Put it at the top.
Blood Runs Red. Maybe not the best map in the game, but definitely one of the most memorable of all. You get a ton of units. You have enough units that you can actually, if everyone's alive, you don't have deployment order for everyone, finally. I guess technically the previous 2 maps are the same way.
Yeah.
Pretty strong enemies. Some interesting bonus objective opportunities, even if they're like really hard to get with trying to keep the vigilantes alive. You recruit Zahark, who is in some ways the most heartthrob of the Navars, depending on who you are. Just really emotional, soft-spoken, well-mannered guy. You get to see all the racism inherent in the system. Boss isn't too strong, but there's a lot of enemies to cover. It's a map that you feel rushed in, even if there's not really a time limit, aside from, oh wait, the Black Knight appears. And then you have Draco Knights who are behind you off map for the entire time, and then 1 or 2 come in. You know, Jill and Har's squad are just sitting there, just off the map in the corner.
Yeah, no, I love this map. I love that this map wants you to do several things at once. Because you have a Killer Lance at the top right, you have a Draco Shield in the bottom left, and then an Elwind for Soren in the middle.
Mm-hmm. You have thieves that are wanting to destroy the villages, destroy the houses as well. You have like 4 different paths through the city. You have the full lower one, you have the middle one, you have the upper one past the house, and then you have the upper one where past what's his name? It's Zahark.
Yeah. I also like that this map, like, along with like the urgency of the houses, if you were playing slow, I love that the wyverns come in behind you, and you've never faced them before as the player, and you're like, whoa, okay, look at their movement range. I don't want to touch any of that. And it's kind of cool, like the pacing of this, because you'd think like, oh, there's like really scrubby like vigilantes on the top side. You can probably just blow through and
literally
then
level 1.
Literally level 1. Like, they are so bad. It is not worth the bonus XP to not kill them. But
well, because they will also attack you and kill themselves on enemy phase.
Yeah, no, exactly. Like, it's not worth it at all. So you'd think it'd be like, oh, okay, just gun it up there. But you also want that sweet Draco Shield in the bottom left, for one thing. And the way the map sort of paces itself out is almost perfect, in my opinion, because usually you'll send like Leith up the north side because Zyrak has to talk to a Laguz, being either her or Mordecai, and Mordecai does not transform immediately, so you'll probably send her. And that's like enough to hang up at the top. There's like a couple bow calves and stuff, but it's not enough to blow through.
No.
And by the time your main squad blows through, like the left side, you've probably gotten close to triggering the Black Knight and the boss in the top left, which is a paladin.
Yeah.
So it's like, you want to rush, but not too much.
Black Knight's turn, what, like 6 or 7, I want to say?
It's probably around there on average. I do believe
it's
around
the time when Leith. It's around the time when Leith untransforms naturally. That the Black Knight spawns.
Yeah, okay. I do believe it's around, like, it's like past the Elwind house going north on the left side, roughly.
Okay,
I
so
do
if you
believe
pass
there's like a horizontal.
That cav squad.
Yeah, roughly. I'm pretty sure that's what triggers it.
Yeah, there's also, is it a Mend staff or is this your first physic? for
Uh,
Volk to steal?
I think it's just amend. I don't think they have physic yet.
Okay,
I
yeah.
forgot about that.
Physic, I think, comes in like after the boat ride, I want to say. Um,
Yeah.
but either way, this is your first opportunity for sweet, sweet staff grabbing action with Volk if you're into that sort of thing.
Yeah, if you're into that, you can do it.
Yeah. Great map overall. A lot of ways to take it on. A lot of different objectives to kind of measure, hey, is this worth my time or not? Some of the objectives are very hard for not a ton of reward, but if you're a completionist and really want to try it, you can. It has a lot of texture to the map that's very interesting and makes every playthrough feel a little bit different when you play it.
Yeah, and I love also that this is, we forgot to mention this, this is an arrive map,
Yes.
which is basically seize, but you can seize, quote unquote, with any unit. And even if you do gun it up with Marcia, like I tend to do because it's funny, especially after that Chapter 11 bonus XP dump,
Mm-hmm.
you notice that like she can't just do everything herself, even if she's over leveled like crazy,
Yeah.
because the boss is very bulky and actually
Mm-hmm.
faster than you might think. And then the person standing on the arrive tile is an armor knight,
Yeah.
so he's gonna take some hits too, without going down. So you do feel like you need your whole team at all times, and I
Mm-hmm.
love that so much.
Yeah, another example of Path of Radiance making it so, yeah, you're encouraged to have, a one or two man army to go off and do separate things, but you're discouraged from having that one or two man army clear the entire map for you.
Yeah, no, exactly. I love that balance of it.
Mm-hmm.
It's
Yeah.
such a good map.
Well, let's talk about a less good
Okay.
boat map.
Oh.
Birds on a boat. uh,
This is barely passable if you bonus XP dumped Marcia. Other than that, this map is very, very slow. The only thing that it gives you in return, to be fair, is some crazy stat boosters. On
yeah.
hard mode, you get 2 Seraph Robes, I believe 2 Secret Books. The boss, I think, drops a blue gem.
Mm-hmm.
And there might be one other one I'm forgetting.
Yeah, and then there's a couple of coins if you want to transfer up to Radiant Dawn.
Uh,
There's
yeah, points.
the interesting thing is that if you have a strong Marcia, you don't. It is a kill boss or route.
It is route.
It is route, but you can route it before all the stat boosters appear,
Yeah.
because I think one appears on turn 7 and one appears on turn like 11 or 12.
Yeah. So you want to reach turn 14. The
14.
reinforcements with the last Seraph Robe come at the end of turn 13. So you do kind of have to wait if you want it, but honestly, it's worth it. Like a Seraph Robe, heck yeah.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
But that doesn't mean the map is fun to play necessarily.
Yeah. Interesting thing about this map is that even though there's technically like adjacent tiles between on the ship and off the ship, it treats it as a 2-tile step.
Yes.
So you can line up at the wall of the ship and not let any ravens on, and then just poke them down with 2 range. If you're trying to train Rolf, this is an interesting place to try to do it.
I'm always there.
He's too weak to kill ravens reliably by himself. But if you fed him up and if you manage to weaken them a little bit, he can do it. You also get Jill, who can very easily get overrun, especially if you are walling off the ravens and not killing them quickly. She has the Laguz Guard, and so she will not die quickly. The Laguz Guard doesn't calculate, or doesn't show you in the calculations how much it's reducing by, but it does have all the damage that they would otherwise take rounded up, I think.
Actually, I'm
Or is
pretty
it
sure it's rounded down.
rounded
But you're
down?
correct. It's half
Okay, so
rounded
yeah.
down.
Yes, it's half rounded down because she normally takes 7 and gets doubled because she's wielding a steel lance. But
Yeah.
that means that she just takes double 3s all the time. And so
Yes.
it looks like she's going to get 2 rounded, but she actually can survive a lot longer than you'd expect. Still
Yeah.
at risk of dying, and will probably miss and not kill a single raven on her own.
Yeah.
But if you somehow don't have Marcia, she is your only flyer, so have fun with that.
Yeah, have fun with that. And the thing is, to note about these ravens, as well, is like they're not complete pushovers either. It's not
No.
like you're waiting on this boat for like all these scrubs to come, and like most of your units won't double them, like straight
Yeah,
up.
they don't hit
Like
super hard, but they're very fast, and that also
yeah,
means they're dodgy.
yeah. Like for once, something is dodgy in Path of Radiance. It's actually crazy, which is I think cool in terms of like gameplay, story integration, whatever you want to call it. Like it feels like how it should, with
Yeah.
how the Ravens are presented, I guess. But I don't know. It's a stat booster map. I like to stack Rolf with his brothers and get that juicy bond support. Maybe get a lucky crit in there somewhere.
I guess the
But
question is, do we leave it at D tier or is it the first F tier map? Because if there weren't an
I think
absolute
it's
ton of...
D.
I think if there weren't an absolute ton of stat boosters on these Ravens, it would be an F tier map.
Oh, for sure, for
Because there
sure.
would be no reason of just like, why am I doing this?
Yeah, no, for sure. I do think the stat boosters make it kind of like, all right, that wasn't great, but I'll take it. Like I'll forgive you.
Like you're right, it's a passable map. So let's
Yeah.
talk about a better boat map, shall we?
Oh, I love this map, dude. I love this map. This is my favorite map in the whole game. This is one of the best defend maps. Oh,
This
dude.
is probably also, in my opinion, the best boat map that Fire Emblem's ever made.
Oh, for sure. I can't think of one that's even like close, to be honest. I kind of liked engages, to be honest, with Linden and stuff. I didn't mind that. But in general, they're pretty low.
I have a weird time thinking about Engage right now. It's like,
No,
how do I
sorry.
rate this game when it's like, I have a lot of fun when I'm playing it, but I do not want to pick it back up when I'm not.
Yeah, no, I'm just thinking like, ooh, Wyvern Lapis goes hard on these boat maps. But
Yeah, but I mean, Jill and or Marcia go real hard. You have... So let me just set the scene a little bit. You're rocking a boat. There's another boat that is being invaded by, turns out, Dayan soldiers, but they've stripped all their colors because, I don't know, reasons. Unclear. But they don't realize that they're attacking the Begnon Empress, they think they're attacking you. And so what's happening is the Holy Guard gets your help to help this boat. You spawn on the south boat, the green units are in the middle boat. If there's a defend point, if the enemy reaches there, you will lose. And then the enemy is on the top boat. I think it's a 13 turn defend?
10.
10 turn, okay.
Yep.
10 turn defend. You have like 6 treasure chests on the map, 4 on the second boat and 2 on the north boat. At turn, like, a couple turns in, you're going to get a lot of ravens spawning in with thief AI. So they will rush towards the chests, pillage them, and then fly off.
Yeah.
And so this map basically says, also there's 2 recruitable units. Gatry, who you can't recruit with Ike. If you try to, I think he can't be recruited. I forget how that works.
Yeah, he's just like, hey, good to see you, man. Glad you're doing well. I'm going to stay a green unit, though.
And Astrid, everyone's favorite trainee.
Oh, I love Astrid, too.
Which feels weird calling her a trainee, but she is a bow archer. She's a bow cavalier who's level 1 but has Paragon and has okay-ish growths, but also has the Night Ward equipped, which makes her seem better. Astrid's a weird unit because she's a fully growth unit, but we're not talking about Astrid right now.
Yeah.
In order to save her turn 1, because she is very likely to die because they're surrounded by enemies, you need to shove Ike... Is it 3 spaces or 4?
3 times. 3 times, yeah.
3 tiles, okay. And so it just presents you with this situation and says, good luck. If you do the base conversation while you're on the boat, you'll be playing the war games with Daniel and George, where they talk about, oh, we're on a map, we're on boats. How would you defend? And Ike's like, well, I would put, really solid defensive units on the gangplanks to prevent, people from going on the boat. And he's like, cool, but what if you just attacked the other boat yourself, so that way you'd prevent, stop the enemies at the source? And he's like, interesting, and so you get this little back and forth between them, and then you get into the boat map, and it's like, okay, I see what the game is doing. And they give you that base conversation a 2-star rating of like, hey, it's not just fluff and world setting, but you're not going to get an item out of it, so
Yeah.
It's
I
just
think
so
it's like
interesting.
1 star. 1 star is just purely story. 2 star is like some kind of strategy, like gameplay strategy tidbit, and then 3 is like items or recruits.
Yeah.
Um,
So
but about chapter 13, like they.
yeah.
Oh, dude, I could gush about this. I'm sorry. You were gonna say something
No, it's
before I go
fine. And
on.
so I'm just like setting the scene. So you have pretty strong enemies. You have some decent treasure in the chests, and so it's like, okay, who do you bring? Do you bring Mordecai for the extra smite, so you don't have to spend as many units shoving? Do you bring one or both thieves in order to get those chests faster? Do you load your chest keys onto your cavaliers? Do you try to clear as much as you can with your flyers? Do you do what some people do and wait for the ravens to steal the chests and then you kill them? And then also you're having to manage this defend point in the middle where, okay, say you do leave a raven alive and it raids a chest. I've had it where sometimes the raven on its way to a chest will just casually stop on the seize point and end the map.
Oh yeah. No, that's the funniest part about this map. Like even when they are not fighting you anymore and they're just going for chests, they've abandoned like their whole contract or whatever. They will still take that tile.
If
it's
it's in
it's pretty
range,
funny.
yeah.
Yeah, if it's in range.
And if you take all
Um
the chests, then even the new ones that spawn will just leave immediately.
yeah, no, they'll just go back. It's like, all right, nothing to do here.
Yeah. Anyway, you were saying, I'll let
But
you
yeah.
have the throne
Oh,
now.
yeah, let me cook. All right, so chapter 13 is my favorite chapter in the game. I've already said that. But I love that there's a sense of urgency in a defend map all over it. There's urgency all over the place. There's urgency with the crows. There's urgency with the chests, especially the top ones, which are the farthest ones away from you and have the best items, being the occult scroll for mastery skills, an energy drop, and a speed wing. And then there's the recruitable character, Astrid, who's really, really fun. And I have seen her survive 1 time on turn 1 hard mode. I don't know what her survivability is like on normal or below, but hard mode, she is like 99% chance will die. I've just seen in one instance, like the Myrmidon that attacks her rolled low enough on speed that he didn't double her. But it was the most cursed thing you've ever seen because he went up, he didn't double her, she lived. And this was on the Ike Solar run, mind you.
Oh,
But what
nice.
happened is I still lost the map turn 1 because the green soldier that was blocking
Got
the
crit.
defend tile got crit. And then the Halberdier in like that center gangplank or whatever just took it. And I was like, what did I just see?
Welcome to a map that, yes, you can lose turn 1, kind of out of
You
your
can
control, but it also is
lose.
within your control because shove exists.
Yeah,
It's
because shove exists.
it's like any and this is the tight line that I kind of talked about in my Battle Before Dawn video of like Battle Before Dawn goes it too hard to the point where it ends up becoming ultimately more frustrating than fun. This
Yeah.
toes that line just close enough so it's really fun and engaging without being overly frustrating because you have the tools necessary to actually complete your objectives turn 1.
Yeah. And like when you were going through that list earlier of like, oh, do you just kill everybody at the top with your flyers? Do you bring both thieves? Do you bring Mordecai? Do you put chess keys on your calves? I say yes to all of that. And that's what I love about it so much. I do all of those things. Because recruiting Astrid turn 1 is super helpful and important. And like you can just have Soth, who's less bulky than Volk. Like neither one of them are great fighters. Do like the closer chests, which are less valuable and a lot less dangerous. You can have your more stationary units, like if you have like a trained up Boyd or something, hold the middle ship while your high movement units go in and clear out the top ship. The boss will eventually move at a certain point, and he can be kind of dangerous.
He's a
He
sniper
has
with a
like
killer bow, I want to say. A killer bow and a longbow, I think.
steel and a long. He can
Steel
crit you
and long.
though, and
Okay.
he also has adept, which can randomly be very bad
Yeah.
as well. And the funny part about the crows too is like you could let them steal a chest and then kill them and they'll drop it. But there's one crow that spawns in with a droppable coin, and if he steals the chest and you kill him, you get the coin.
Yeah,
Which
yeah.
is like, I
Unlike
love
other
this.
Fire Emblem games where
Hilarious.
it defaults their droppable to the most recently acquired item, no,
Yeah.
this game doesn't. If something steals an item, you ain't getting it back.
Yeah, it's like hope you didn't want that energy drop. Here's a coin.
Yeah,
Like thanks, dog. But
big
no,
mood.
this map is so good. I feel like it there's so much multitasking going on, and this is again one of those times where it's like we talked about it in 11. It's like, yeah, you might think like, oh, just have Marcia and Titania like kill everything, but if you want everything on the map, you can't do that. You have to use everybody,
Yeah,
and
definitely.
it's so fun. It is
This
so
is
fun.
a perfect example of. I talked about, Chapter 7 being. This is why a lot of people kind of don't like Path of Radiance, because, you have some interesting things and then it just slows to a halt. This is the
Yeah,
perfect example of why people like Path of Radiance, of what it does well. Path of
yeah,
Radiance does the tactical decision making on the map exceedingly well.
yeah.
And
No,
this is
dude,
just the perfect map showing it.
Chef's Kiss, S tier map.
Well, let's talk about maybe not a Chef's Kiss map. I'm gonna drop this maybe in C tier. We'll see. It's I think the map is called Training,
It is called training. Yeah.
which is weird because it's like okay, but you are fighting against feral ones for the first time. There's only a couple of them,
Hmm.
mostly brigands, and it's a fog of war map. And you have Makalov as well up in the top left somewhere. That
Yeah.
he has sometimes charged me on through the fog of war in enemy phase and gotten himself killed. That can
Oh
happen.
yeah. Yeah, you still get the red gem. It's fine.
Yeah, overall, not a ton to say about this map. It's an example of kind of a mediocre fog of war map. It's not terrible. It's not unplayable. It's not like brutally difficult or unfair. It just kind of feels boring.
Yeah, I personally I think I'd put it in B. Reason being is that there's still like some urgency with like the top left houses, even though it is fog of war. It's not like so brutal that like you're gonna overextend and get somebody killed, generally speaking. But you do have to get up there pretty fast, or those houses are getting burned down.
That's fair.
And you do get the vantage scroll there, which is ordinarily good. Um, my personal bias in the Ike solo run, that skill is essential.
Because
So
Path of
I
Radiance
like that a lot.
Vantage doesn't have a percent chance, doesn't have a HP threshold. It just means you always attack first.
Yeah, yeah. Like doing Ike solo chapter 17 without Vantage Guard, like you will die.
Oh yeah,
You
no,
will
that sounds
die.
miserable.
So I like that about it. Along with, like I said, the fog of war not being too dangerous or too pressing, really. You also get to buy torch staves in the base before this. Oh, I think this is the only time you can do that,
Yeah,
actually.
you can if you're playing on hard mode. If you're not on hard mode, this is the only Fog of War chapter in the game. If you are, then it's the second Fog of War in this, and chapter
Yeah.
6 is the first. On hard mode, you get a torch from an enemy in chapter 6.
Yeah,
Otherwise,
yeah.
yeah, you have to buy it here if you want one.
Yeah, yeah. Which is like, honestly, I normally just give it to Mist and like have her spam it. You know, that's okay.
Yeah.
Um, Another thing too to note, a change from like Japanese to English is the boss has a killer axe up here. He's a berserker,
Yep.
so a little bit of like a. I think they get a crit bonus. It's not very much. It's not like FE6 or something.
Oh,
But I think they get like 10 or
Does
15.
Japanese get a bigger
Um,
crit bonus?
no, so the boss moves in Japanese Path of Radiance, at least on Maniac.
Oh yeah, because
Whereas
he
he will
doesn't
stay
move.
still.
He's a stationary boss for whatever reason. Because
Yeah.
tigers will move, but he won't.
No, the tigers don't move either.
Oh wait, no, none of them. Oh yeah, no,
No,
because
none
you
of
have
them move.
three massive, bulky, really strong
Yeah.
enemies that are locked to one range that just don't
Yeah.
move.
Yeah, no, and the funnier part about that is in English Path of Radiance, the tigers will move under no circumstances. They will stay there until they die. Even if it takes you 10 rounds or something with Rolf and
Oh,
Astrid
but
or
will he
whatever,
move if you trigger
whatever you're
healing
doing.
AI?
He will move, and since he's a berserker class, he can walk on water. So I've actually gotten into a situation where I couldn't reach him anymore besides Marcia, and I almost like had to reset because of that. I was like, oh god,
Oh,
like this is horrible.
that's brilliantly terrible. So he's stationary AI, which will activate healing AI.
Yes.
That's brilliantly just terrible. This is like, oh.
Isn't it so funny?
Because as soon as the healing AI is done, He's back to stationary.
Yeah, no, exactly. He is. But
Yeah,
he just
that
has
was not
access to terrain
the
that no one else
best. That was
does.
not the best considered combination of traits there.
Yeah, it normally
Uh,
doesn't happen, but like it is very funny and it will happen. But on Maniac, I remember the first time I played Maniac, I got to like that top bridge in the top right, and he
mhm.
just came out of nowhere and attacked Ike, and everything was fine. Like his hit rate was still kind of garbage.
Yeah, because
But
he's
I
a
was like,
berserker
whoa,
with a
you're not
killer axe,
supposed to
but
do
yeah.
that. I'm not used to you doing that.
Yeah.
That's not allowed.
Yeah, so it's like this map has the potential to be a really threatening map with that. Like I said, it's easy. The
Yeah.
strongest enemy you've had to fight by a good margin at this point in the game.
Yeah.
Um,
I I would rank it over like Prologue at least.
yeah, that's fair. Prologue kind of is. It's a prologue map. I have it in
It's a
C
Prologue.
tier because it's a good prologue map, not because it's a good map.
Yeah, yeah,
Um,
yeah.
I'm
I
debating
mean, I
actually to boost this back up to B tier because looking at the other maps that are up there, I'm like, I do kind of like this map, but at the same time, I'm like, oh, where does this fall, you know?
mhm. Yeah, I mean, my personal opinion, I think chapter 14 goes
You said
either
it's like a
above
B
or
tier.
below, either above or below 11, depending on which way like you slice it. Um, I'd be fine with low B or high C. I like it more than any of the maps in C tier,
Okay,
I would say. But that's just me. You know, we can always
that's
compromise or
fair. And
whatever.
yeah, that's fair. Bottom of B sounds fine. Which one's 11 again? My brain is.
Right next to it, the prison.
Yes, yes. Prison's 11? I thought prison was like 10. Because it's like
Oh,
prison's
sorry. Yeah,
10.
10, 10,
Because I'm like
10.
higher than
11 is Blood
11.
Runs Red.
You're
Yeah,
not
my
going to get
bad, my
higher than
bad.
Blood Runs Red. So
I'm
very
losing
few
it.
maps can do that.
I'm losing it. I'm losing it.
Yeah, well, let's find something in the desert.
No.
Hey,
No.
how do you like hidden items? How do you like hidden
I.
secret characters?
All right, all right. Stefan, excellent character. I
Mhm.
love him so much. And I love that he isn't like a random chance, like to get. If you walk Leith or Mordecai to that tile, you
Mhm.
will get him. So that's nice. But the only time I've enjoyed secret items in a desert was in FE6 because there's a bug that you can do to where you get it automatically
No matter
without
what.
like a random chance.
Yeah, in
If
this
not
you
for
have
that,
to use
it's
thieves
terrible.
to get it guaranteed. Which I think thieves do have their full movement
They
in
do,
this
yes.
desert. Not like
Yeah,
in GBA where they're halved. But yeah, this is a weird
yeah, or
map. You're
Radiant Dawn where
only
Soft can't
fighting
move in the
Lagoos,
desert.
but this is one of like I think it's the only map where you fight Lagoos that aren't feral ones. So they actually do have gauges and transform and untransform. You can kill
Yeah,
the untransformed Lagoos really easily, but you get a lot less experience for it. But also, for every Lagoos you leave alive, you get 50 bonus experience, I want to say.
yeah, it's something like that. But you're right. This is the only like Lagoos besides the Ravens in the couple chapters earlier that
Hmm.
are not feral ones. Like these are the only cats and tigers that you will fight that are not feral ones, stuff like
Yeah.
that.
You don't have
Um,
any items that are, like, incredibly crazy outside of the... I want to say there are boots on this map,
there are
because
boots,
there's boots in,
yes.
like, most deserts is where the boots are. Um,
Yeah.
but, like, you don't have a warp staff. I think you have a sleep staff? Because the warp
There's a
staff
physic.
is a physic. Okay, you have a silver
Yeah.
blade, I think.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's
Oh,
coin, silver blade, shine, boots, physic, white gem, Stefan, and a statue frag.
yeah, yeah. So nothing too crazy outside of Stefan.
Yeah, outside of Stefan and the boots,
And
it's like
Stefan and the
okay.
boots. The boots are like, if I remember right, really close. They're just a couple tiles north of your starting location.
So they're like
Or are they the
in
ones that are
the
like,
top. It's a 3x3 to the right of where Morim is. So like near
okay,
the top of
yeah,
the map,
so
like
it's
right
like
there. Yeah.
this little square, there's the rock, and then north of the rock, you
Hmm.
have the. Okay, yeah. Again, thieves can get items 100% of the time. Everyone else, it's a luck percent chance. Um, a lot of Lagoos. Managing. I think it's really interesting in theory, managing the enemy Laguz's transform gauges, because they will all auto-transform once they hit 20, and only untransform when they hit 0. And so being able to
Mhm.
look at the map and see every single Laguz has a different gauge,
Yeah.
that makes taking on this map actually potentially more interesting, if it weren't for the fact that everyone can't move at all outside of your flyers, thieves, and mages. And I've already talked at length in a different video about how you're probably not using many mages, even though this is, in theory, this is the map that's designed for mages because all Laguz are weak to some form of elemental magic. But the magic base damage is so low, and being only doubled instead of tripled does not really help you. Plus, they don't take bonus damage when they're not transformed.
Yeah, that's true too. That's really big to note as well.
I think flyers take bonus damage from bows if they're not transformed, but not from wind magic.
Uh,
Or do they even
I
not
actually
only
don't know.
take
I don't know.
bonus damage from bows?
I don't think they
Laguz
do because
Laguz
on
weapons
chapter
do.
12, yeah, Laguz weapons still will.
Yeah, they work
Um,
regardless.
but
Funny thing, the Laguz bow is effective against Laguz, but not against other flyers.
yeah.
They just overwrote that effectiveness thing, if I remember right.
Jeez.
Yeah, I think for desert maps, this is among the more interesting desert maps, but I'm not necessarily sure if that means it's a great map.
I mean, the concept of like killing as few Laguz as possible to get more bonus XP is interesting in theory because it is a defeat boss map. You
Mm-hmm.
can just fly up there and kill Marum if you want, but that does sort of clash with the whole like wanting to get all these hidden items. And if you're a blind player, you won't know they're there, sure.
Yeah.
But I think most people will look up desert items when they play
Mm-hmm.
Fire Emblem. So to me, like this map ends up kind of being in some ways worse than 12. Because I just feel
12,
like
you're
the
waiting
items,
for it, but you're guaranteed to get them.
yeah, and like the items overall are better. Like obviously boots are
Mm-hmm.
insane. And I'll even shout out the physics staff. Like having one physic user in FE9 is normally pretty helpful.
Yeah.
But like two Seraph robes, that's crazy. You know what I mean? Like
Mm-hmm.
I'd
Yeah.
much rather that in general. So I don't know. I think thematically it's cool, but in practice, I don't really like it all that much.
Yeah. I'm going to put it into C tier just because I don't mind desert maps too much. Though I will say it definitely does clash where it's like this is the first map where you have your full Cav squad, potentially, if you're using
Yeah.
Makalov as well. And boom, they all have 2 movement. Have fun.
Well, yeah, two move promoted. If they're not promoted yet, it's one,
Yeah,
I
because
think. So,
um no, I think it's still 2. But they don't gain an
is
extra
it?
move promoted. I want it. Maybe it is. That is a weird, because then that would be 4.5 tiles, because because Cavs have 8/9 in Path of Radiance.
Oh, maybe you're right. Maybe I'm misremembering. I just thought Titania had two move here.
Yes, she has 2 move. I think you are right in that like unpromoted Oscar, Kieran, or Makalov only have 1.
Okay.
So then it must be a 4.5 tile move rate, which is absurd. But
Yeah,
Path
that's
of
terrible.
Radiance, the beach tiles had like a slightly. They play around weirdly with movement restrictions on the
Yeah.
tiles. It's not all whole numbers. I'm gonna put it bottom of C just because I think it's a more interesting map than a lot of these other ones conceptually. Even if in practice, the fact that it is a desert, then you're hunting hidden items, is kind of hit or miss. I
Yeah.
like it conceptually at least more than these maps, but I'm not really going to put it any higher up than that.
I can kind of get behind that. Again, I like chapter 3 more than you do. But the rest of it I do get it. Like the objective and the premise is generally more interesting than anything in the D tier at the very least.
Yeah, it's one of those things like conceptual win, execution, it could be better.
Yeah, yeah, for sure.
Well, let's talk about Oliver's Place. How do you feel about chapter 16?
So This one's actually pretty fun, honestly. So it's a seas, but you also have a lot of chests, which is always fun. And then at turn 5, a thief spawns in like the top left area, like right close to that room. And that top left room has a bolting and a physic, if I'm not mistaken.
It's some pretty good stuff.
So if you want that, you gotta book it. As well as the full guard in the center room, which is crazy, and a Draco shield, which is crazy.
Lots of great items that Duke Tenos
yeah.
is hiding here.
So that's already really good.
Devdan is one of the more interesting recruitment subsets because he can only be talked to with young units, which is weird. Because the list is
weird to say, yeah.
Mist, Rolf, or young looking. So it's Mist, Rolf, Soren, and I think one other.
Yeah, Mist, Rolf, Soren.
Tormod.
Ilyana? Actually, maybe not Ilyana.
Mist, Rolf, Soren, and Tormod.
Oh, Tormod.
Because you get this is the first chapter he's available. Can recruit him, which is a very interesting subset. Because he's like, oh, don't worry, little one. I will help you. I will protect you and fight instead. I will turn on the people who are hiring me as a gardener.
yeah. Well,
like I'm a gardener, but he is a halberdier. Devdan makes no sense. He's we're not going to talk about Devdan, but
he's a guy.
He's funny. I think it's interesting. Is this the first time? I think this might be the first time that they use closed roofs. What I mean by that is that it's the first time they used it in some of the other, like the GBA tiles, like FE6 has a couple maps with them. You don't know what's behind a door until you open it. And once you open the door, all of these rooms have enemies in them, so which discourages you just sending a thief to get the treasure, because you open the door and suddenly there's enemies that you have to fight.
Yeah, especially because the top right room has a promoted halberdier with a killer lance, so don't do that.
Yeah, the top right room is dangerous.
The
other ones are less so. I think it's like myrmidons and soldiers. And then maybe one of them has a sniper?
The top left is either 1 or 2 archers and then like a myrmidon or something. The center room actually has no enemies in it, and that one actually is not roofed off. Like you can see inside of it. But then the top right, as I said, has like an archer and like the halberdier with a killer lance. And oddly enough, the top right room is the most dangerous with the worst items.
Yeah,
because it's like a lance and an Ashra icon. It's like, okay, I guess.
Not terrible, but still, it's like I'll take it, but I'm not going to be happy about it.
But no, the full guard and the Draco shield are, oh my god, get those.
Yeah, but this is also a seas map, I want to say.
Yes.
So the kill boss or seas, so you don't have to take the treasure if you don't want to, but obviously it's really good treasure you're going to want to. But you have to go past the boss to get the treasure and then come back around to him. But the boss is also guarded by a ton of units.
Oh yeah.
So what I do sometimes is send, a couple units down the southern channel past to recruit Devdan and get the treasure, while the rest of my army works up the stairs to kill the boss.
Yeah, and that room is a project in itself. Like, all of the mages there will not move. There's a thunder and a fire mage by the boss, and then there's a wind mage kind of in the center of the room. And the 2 armor knights by the wind mage will move toward you, as well as a sniper in the back.
Yeah, there's a sniper in the back, and then there's a priest as well healing them up.
Yes. Yeah, so that's its own thing. I kind of like that you kind of have to break into it. You know what I mean? It's not like just cheese. As well as like sending enough good units down the south side and like over to the chests and stuff is pretty fun. I like this map a lot, actually.
Yeah, I like it more than Chapter 7, definitely. Probably top of B. Debating putting it into A tier.
I'd be down with low A, I think, actually. I'd be down with that.
I actually think I like it a little bit more than this map.
Yeah.
Playing it wise, Chapter 1 is like just a really well crafted first map.
Yeah, it is.
So it's hard
It
to
is.
dethrone that right now. But talk about long maps. This is a map split into 4 parts.
Yeah.
So
A breaks.
Chapter 17 is an interesting map because every sequential map after it, you get to call in 2 reinforcements which show up at turn 3 or 4.
I believe
Um, and you
it's either 2 or 3. Yeah.
Yeah, 2 or 3 turns, and you can't access the convoy with the rest of your army. So if you want any extra weapons or items, you have to bring them in on those new units that you bring in. So it's very much a map series designed to kind of starve you out, test your resource management skills, and all of that, whilst also being kind of a rush to actually finish the objectives. Because if I remember right, it's route, a uh,
Yeah. Arrive.
route,
Arrive. Route.
arrive,
Arrive.
survive,
Survive.
kill boss.
Yep.
So it's the gambit of like you know, everything except defend. It survive is like an adjusted
Yeah.
defend. It's
Yeah. Exactly.
that the game has at you. It's the only different one is like there's no. I keep thinking there's like a fifth objective we've seen, but there's not really. Um,
Well, escape.
yeah.
I guess, but
So this first map is probably the best example of, oh my goodness, I really want to finish before a certain turn because otherwise a lot of reinforcements spawn route map that you get.
yeah. But it is pretty doable, I will say,
Mm-hmm.
which I do think bumps it up a decent amount. Um, I don't think there are any big droppables on this map.
No, not really. There's a
There's
couple
an
stealable staves.
antitoxin.
I think this might be where the first physics staff you can steal is,
Uh,
but
actually, are there? I don't think there's any priests on this map.
okay, so maybe not.
Um,
Yeah, there's not really a
there's a
lot of good.
ton in
Th-
the third one.
okay, yeah, there's not a lot of good loot on this map. There's not a ton of particularly strong enemies. But if you don't speed clear, this is one of the few maps where it's like if you don't speed clear, you're gonna be here a while because turn 5 or 6 starts reinforcements, and then they keep showing up for another like every other turn for a decent amount. I forget the specifics.
Yeah. Well, they're also very scattered. Like there'll be two
Hmm.
enemies that spawn at the bottom and then like two up top or something, or
Yeah, it'll be
one
like
off to
some
the
at the
left.
top,
It's
one at
weird.
the left, some behind your starting army.
Yeah.
Fun story about this map. This is the first time that my brother saw. So we were playing it through the first time. It was my brother's game, so he played it through first. Um, we had the Nintendo Power Guide for it, and
Oh wow.
this is the first map I want to say. Maybe it's not the first map, but my brother started paying attention to like I think they mentioned somewhere around here the last map of like, hey, by the way, if you bring fewer units, you'll get more bonus experience. And so this map, he saw the army, and I'm like, I can take that out with only a couple units. And so we only brought like 5 or 6 units. And then so we had to do the entirety of all 17, starting with a base of like 5 units.
Oh yeah, no,
Which,
that's not good.
no, was not great. Yeah, I'm not a huge fan of 17A, but I will say for people who are optimizers, this is definitely a map that's kind of like bent to them of like, hey, can you kill all the enemies before reinforcements spawn? It's the reason why some people really like the chapter 12, I think it is, 11 or 12 in Engage, because it's one of the few maps where it's like, yeah, you optimize your route so you don't have to fight reinforcements.
Yeah, I'm the biggest route map hater there ever was, I think, at this point.
Mm-hmm.
But I actually like this map. I like routing them before a lot of the reinforcements come in is very, very doable. And it's not in the sense we've talked about this several times, but it's not
Mm-hmm.
in the sense of like, oh, Marcia, Titania, go Burr, that's it.
Yeah,
Like you send them to the north, sure,
because
but
you gotta
enemies are
have the
so
rest of your
scattered
units
that
fighting.
yeah, you need the whole team. You need
Mm-hmm.
control of the space, and in that way, a route map I think can be fun. If you're incentivized to like spread out. Just
Okay.
like a quick example, like a lot of what I felt in Birthright is like Birthright Lunatic is like there wasn't really like incentive to go forward until you got Ryoma, because you didn't have like really good 1 to 2 range
Mm-hmm.
fighters a lot of the time. Like, yeah, Takumi will one shot ninjas, but he only attacks at 2 range for a bit.
Yeah.
So it felt like I was just standing there slowly grinding through it, and it was
Mm-hmm.
so awful to play. But this is at a point in the game where a lot of your units are promoted or at least are very close.
Yeah.
So if you bring in your whole team and have everybody do their own job, it's actually pretty fun.
Yeah. Yeah. This is 16 and 17 is when a decent chunk of your army should be coming alive. 18 is when, like, okay, most of your units should be promoted by now, aside from maybe a couple training projects.
Yeah, aside from like
Um,
maybe roll for possibly missed if you didn't give her a master
or
seal
like
yet.
Tormod if you want to use Tormod for whatever reason.
Yeah,
Um,
celerity mage.
yeah. But yeah, overall, pretty simple, straightforward map. One of the few simple maps, and yes, there is swamp terrain that slows you down, so you have to move around that. One of the more simple maps that I think still manages to be more interesting, just because you still have more options on what units you can bring and how you can use them. The Arrive map is kind of interesting because you can just send a flyer and clear it in 2 turns, but also I think there's actually some decent droppables on this one.
There's a couple staves to steal,
Mm-hmm.
I think. I don't recall the droppables, to be quite honest
I
with you.
think
I know
there's
the first map has an antitoxin and either a killer lance or a hand axe.
I think the Killer Lance is on map. Maybe there's one at the first one, but I seem to remember there's like a Cav squad or something in the swamp, some sort of squad in the swamp that has an item that you get if you kill them, but is like really hard to
Okay.
get it safely because the entire squad moves as a bulk. This is
Yeah.
one of those maps where it's like you can pretty quickly clear it, but if you don't clear it relatively quickly, all the enemies that are in the swamp will get out of the swamp and like surround you.
Yeah. Which I think that is part of the fun for me, like clearing
Mm-hmm.
it fast. Like, all right, Marcia, go to the objective. We're just gonna hang here for a bit, hold out until you get there. It's like that's kind of fun. Uh, on the Ike Solar run, this is like the most telegraphed map in the whole thing. Like it is like
Really?
clockwork, yeah. Because if you give him like the boots, he makes it there perfectly, and he gets to I think it's like 4 turns or so, maybe like 5. But like the last turn before he arrives, he's 1 tile away from the arrive point, and nobody in the top right can reach him yet. Like it is so perfect.
So, something I want to raise with this map, and I'm just going to ask you the question, because there are 3 routes to the right. There's the up and around through all the enemies, up the left and around.
Hmm.
There's the through the middle, which is through some swamp, though there is some solid ground to speed up progress. And then
Yeah.
there's this little secret path to the right through the trees. That
Yeah.
it's a 1 tile wide the entire way. If any enemies come by, they're choking it off forever. But you
Well,
can walk there, I think. Or are those
no.
only
No, no,
that's
no.
not
So
fully walkable? It's just some spots you can leave some flyers at.
yeah, no. So that whole like right corner quadrant, whatever you want to call it, there
Mm-hmm.
are like maybe 4 tiles that are only reachable by flyers.
Okay, yeah, because what Path of Radiance does, and Radiant Dawn as well, Path of Radiance first, is that a lot of these tiles are not landable by any unit, including flyers. Flyers can,
Yes.
like, basically, flyers can fly over these tiles, but they can't stop on them to end their turn. They have to stop
Right.
on, like, a tile that's walkable by a land unit.
Yeah, exactly. Like they can't land on the tree, but they can go over it.
Mm-hmm.
Is basically the premise here.
Yeah.
Which is like kind of a fun sneak route for your designated flyer to get
Mm-hmm.
up there while everybody else kind of does their thing.
Yeah, it's a
Which
little
is
bit
fun.
hard to tell exactly on this, you know, this thumbnail for ants here.
Oh yeah, no, I know it is, but yeah, no, it's like I believe it's like within 8 tiles each one of them, so that even if they're not promoted, they can feasibly reach over.
Mm-hmm.
But they probably will be promoted.
Yeah, we also got a lot of these fancy lines here. I'm looking in, I'm zooming in. We have the red line, which I think triggers reinforcements, and then you have a green line, which triggers something else. Is that more Is that a different
Oh.
reinforcement zone?
I mean, I can like barely make it out to be honest, but I think the red line. Where's the red line? Is it a
It's in
vertical?
the top right. It goes down here and then goes to the right. So it's just like sections off this
Oh.
the top right corner of the map.
Okay, yeah. So the red line, just going off the Ike solo run, is like once Ike crosses roughly where that red horizontal line is,
I'm
going
pulling
up to
up
the
Fire Emblem
arrive.
WAD right now.
Yeah, no, go ahead, go ahead. There's a point where like you would think that a lot of the top enemies would move down earlier than they do. So by the time you're near the arrive tile, like in order to get it next turn, then they will start to move, and they'll probably not even be able to reach you by then.
Yeah, okay.
So
So
like a
what
little
it
late to the party.
is that... Okay, so this little line over here that looks like it's a path through the trees, that's like a line indicating where they recommend sending a flyer, and it has like little X's
Oh,
on like, hey, here's a place where a flyer could stop. So like the little
yeah,
corners
yeah.
of it are places where you could stop at. There's a red line going through the center, which is a reinforcement line that starts a spawn chain of 2 soldiers, and one on the left here that spawns a spawn chain of 2 lance cavaliers.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm just looking up these maps now on Fire Emblem WAD because they have really zoomed in pictures of the maps as well as the overhead thumbnails.
Yeah, yeah. That's nice.
That's actually pretty convenient. Anyway, how do you rate the Arrive map versus the Route map?
I think it's over the route map. Um,
How over are we talking
I'm
about?
I like it better than Chapter 7.
Okay,
I'd put it at Chapter 7.
is 7 still above the jail?
Nah, put the jail above 7. Yeah,
Okay, the
that
jail's at
looks
least
a
more
little better.
iconic to the game.
Absolutely. Yeah, iconic in like a cool way, you know? Like,
Yeah,
oh,
yeah.
that was neat, you know?
And then we have the Survive map, where Ike begins carrying Leanne for the entire time, and is now at half skill, half speed for the entire rest of 17.
Oh, yeah.
This map is weird because you start here. You have a couple enemies to your north, and then the reinforcement line for enemies is that northwest. But the bulk of the enemies are down here to the bottom right, and a couple of reinforcements come in there as well.
Yeah.
You have so many units on this map that it's really possible to kill most of the enemies, if not all of them, and then you're stuck waiting for a couple turns while you
Yeah.
wait out the timer, because it doesn't end when you kill all the enemies. You have to wait out all 10 turns.
Yeah, and on top of that, the northwest reinforcements, you can just block them off. Like there's 3 tiles where like calves all come through, and if you're just against the wall there, they won't come through. Like I forget what they're called. Like the reinforcements that you can block the spawn.
Yeah, you can spawn block those. I know that some of them you can't, so that they will just move past you, but these ones you can.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, the calves you can. Yeah, here. I mean, this is the worst one out of the Daybreaks chapters for sure.
Yeah, it's definitely a weaker one. Would I put it down in like D tier with these? Maybe. I don't know. Like, there's not really a ton of interesting stuff. Like you said, I think there's a couple staves to steal if you route correctly, but
yeah,
there's no real interesting droppables. There's no, notable side objectives. There's obviously no incentive to rush because the map will keep going no matter what.
yeah. The most
just
notable thing you already said is Ike is forcing like a rescue. You know
yeah,
what I mean?
so it's
And
like
his
the
stats
map
are
is
nerfed.
only interesting on the Ike solo run, where it's like, how the heck do I get him to survive now?
So yeah, I hope you brought steel forges and vantage and guard.
Yeah. So, something that I think is interesting about the Ike solo run, the routing of it, at least conceptually, is that you're constantly rotating out what skills Ike has.
Yeah, no, that is a very fun part
That's
of
that's
it.
the only thing that is like, okay, that makes this interesting enough that I might consider doing it at some point in time. Granted, I've done so many Lord solos, it's just only a matter of
Yeah.
time before I gets his chance to shine.
Well, if you ever do it, bring me on. I'll
Ah,
give you some tips.
sounds great. But yeah, would you say like bottom of C tier? Would you say top of D? Because
Probably top of D. I think like
I personally like
is
chapter 4 a little bit more. Because yes, it's hard, but at least it engages my brain. This map, I kind of start falling asleep to.
like yeah, but also maybe I kind of like this one more than chapter 4 because this is the point in the game, as we've said, where like a lot of your units are like already kind of shaping up. So there's like some
Hmm.
fun to be had in there, just like stomping things for a
Yeah,
bit.
that's fair. And meanwhile, chapter 4 is like you have one or two. It's one of the few maps where it's like you have one or two solutions just because of
Yeah.
how early it is in the
Yeah, I
game.
just feel like oddly enough, chapter 4 a lot of times feels like more of a slog
Hmm.
in a weird way.
Yeah, I might put it down. Like, this is disjointed. At least this one is cohesive for what it is.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, and then 17D or
Yeah.
uh, Tabarn gets his revenge.
Yeah, it's a barn. The power of the barn.
So this
Yeah.
map, you start over here on the right. You have two sections divided roughly by forest. There's a gap in the south here and a couple flyable terrain pieces that you can fly over here. You can get some units decently far in, but you can't cross all the way through on land. And then there's
Yes.
like a meteor or bolting
It's a
mage
meteor. Yep.
that if you kill him, you get his meteor.
Mm-hmm.
Or is it you get the second
Uh,
weapon he has? And so you have to convince him to equip his L-Fire so
ah,
you can get his meteor.
I don't actually know that it's droppable. I forget,
Yeah,
to be
maybe it
honest.
might not be.
I think the first droppable siege tome is chapter 20. It's like the blizzard.
Could
Is
be,
that
could
right?
be.
Or am I thinking of the bridge? There's a droppable blizzard on the bridge.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway.
Anyway, um, you can clear down and then cross here, but by that point, this section, kind of in the middle here, south middle, is where you're gonna be blocked up by enemies for quite a while. Because I think there's some reinforcements that'll choke that point. But really, what you're trying to do is horseshoe around to get to Oliver and kill him because it's a kill boss map. But you
Mhm.
also want to kill the people next to him because I think they have some decent skill scrolls. If I want to say, let me
Oh yeah,
check.
one of the halberdiers has adept, which is huge.
Yes. Okay. So theoretically, you could steal the meteor tome if you get Volk there and have like an 18 strength Volk. Yeah, that's not gonna happen.
Whoa. Yeah,
Yeah.
no
So the
way.
halberdier next to him has adept, and then Oliver has his Nosferatu. Um,
Hmm.
all light tomes in this game might as well just be called Reese's personal weapons because you
Yeah.
don't have any other light mage in the game playable.
Yep. Too bad I
Um,
never use them.
yeah, exactly. So, interesting fact about that. So, it's like, it doesn't really matter if Tabarn gets to Oliver before you do, but you do want to try to get that Adept scroll from the Halberdier, whether you steal it or kill him for it.
Oh yeah. No, adept is like super huge. It's good in like any game that it's in, sure. But like in this game, when enemies are so bulky, like sometimes your best units will still need that third attack to one round.
Hmm.
And that helps a lot. But no, this is probably yeah, no, this has to be my favorite of the Daybreaks chapters. Like I love the urgency to get to adept because it's like yeah, it's defeat boss. You could play it fast if you want, and there's an adept scroll. But really, you're racing to the adept scroll because you don't want Tabarn to kill it first, and
Yeah,
then you don't get it. You know what I mean? So like,
definitely.
that's kind of cool.
Tabarn also brings Janeth, Ulki, and Rayson along, so you get to see the birds in action. They can die in this chapter, but I think they don't die permanently if they die as green units.
Correct. They will still be recruitable
Yeah,
next
because they
chapter.
are very easy to just they can very easily die because their AI is kind of fend for themselves.
Yeah.
And
Plus, in the top right, eventually like bow knights come in and stuff
mhm.
like that, which can hurt. But Rayson runs away. I'll give him credit for that.
Yeah, there's some interesting stuff with the line triggers where if you happen to trigger, because there's 3 bonites that spawn towards the bottom of the map, it says like basically right behind where the birds spawn. And so if you cross that green line on the same turn that the birds spawn, they'll just have to deal with bonites
Yeah.
right away.
Yeah, but generally speaking, you do want them to spawn in like as early as possible, because Tabarin is just invincible.
Yeah.
And that'll help you clear out a lot of it. And a lot of times, Tabarin's AI will go for things like the Meteor Mage first, which will give you time to get the Adept Scroll and things like that, which is nice.
Yeah, yeah,
So that's
definitely.
pretty cool.
Fun map,
But
reasons to rush, but also, you know, if you're just completely exhausted or beaten down and drained of resources from the rest of them, you can just let Tabarn finish it off for you.
yeah, for sure. And like it's one of those things where it's like you want your whole team to be doing something on like the main route, but if you have it prepared, you can send Marcia over there to kill the Meteor Mage early or to get the Adept Scroll early. And like she'll reasonably be fine if she has like a full guard and like you've been giving her experience and stuff. So
Yeah, and
again,
if you
it's
want
just
a
like
flyer route through the back, these white squares are places you can land on.
yeah. So again, it's just like incentive to like go all out with your whole team, and I think that's really fun.
Definitely.
Um, but yeah, this is the hardest one in the Ike solo run too. I won't talk about the Ike solo run anymore. This is the most interesting chapter by far.
Yeah,
Which is why I'm talking
the
about it.
routing of
But
17 for Ike solo is truly interesting. Again, because you only have the equipment you bring in. Plus, for the last 2 chapters, Ike is, you know, half his capabilities because of Leanne backpack.
yeah, and generally
But
speaking, like you need to barn to clear that 9 times out of 10. I have killed Oliver in the Ike solo, with Ike. It
you're
is
probably out
doable.
of swords by that point, though, right?
Actually, on average, you'll still have like 1 full forge, and then 1 is like maybe 10 uses left or so.
Okay, that's also assuming that you're,
Uh,
like, efficiently doing the other stuff and saving weapon uses. Anyway,
yeah.
Ike gets a promotion, and then we get to see
Yeah.
what he's really like, because Ike's promotion gains are pretty good, especially for his defenses.
Yeah, they're actually very solid.
Yeah, it's like, I
Um,
don't know what happened, but I had an Ike that was, like, subpar in every way, and then he gets promoted in 18, and it's like, wait, he's just cruising. What the heck happened?
yeah, no, exactly. He's fine. He's honestly fine.
Yeah, welcome to, I mean, the map that anyone who's playing Maniac mode will want to stop, because every enemy starts getting promoted, plus there's twice as many of them. You
Yeah.
fight a lot more siege tomes at this point on. You are
Yeah.
actively invading Dayan territory now, so expect the enemies to be strong, and while not all of them are promoted, you're starting to fight more promoted enemies mixed in with regular ones. And you get Shinon again if you know, bring Rolf and then beat him up with Ike, and one of the more convoluted recruitments in the game, in the
Yeah,
series.
yeah. It's interesting for sure. But there are some cool combos there and stuff. Overall, I think 18 is like it's okay. Like it is a route map that does take quite a while because enemies continue to spawn at the very top, which is
And also behind you.
yeah, and also behind you. So you always feel like you have to leave 1 or 2 people back, as well as just sort of trudging through to the very, very end just to kill like the last couple ravens or whatever.
Yeah. It's a weird map that loops in on itself through very tight corridors. These are walls, so you can't just like cross through. You have to follow this looping corridor path, which doubles back on itself just to give the enemy siege tomes more opportunities to chip down on your units.
Yeah,
And then, yeah,
exactly. It
the end
makes
of the
them so
map
much
has
more
like some
annoying.
ravens spawning. You have to come outside and deal with them. It is just kind of a slog of a map. It's
Yeah.
fun only because, hey, Ike's at full power now, watch him go. But
Yeah, I'd put it bottom of C just for the having fun with Ike, pretty much. Beyond that, it's not that interesting. The chests are
they're not good, are
a
they?
recover staff, which is like, whatever. There's a wrath
Oh,
scroll, which is
Wrath.
pretty important.
Wrath is
Um,
big.
and then a silence, I believe, and then there's a shade scroll droppable on there too.
Yes. You also get Raisin on this map, which is another reason why I think I remember it, because you get Raisin.
Yeah.
Or a renewal scroll if you don't want
Yeah.
Raisin.
If you're a moron, you get the renewal scroll.
Yeah, 10% max HP rounded down per turn. Ooh, wow.
Yeah. Yikes.
Yeah, not a
Yeah,
super interesting
I
map
think
outside
it's
of the Siege Tomes and Shinon.
yeah, I think it's fine where it is. I would say before we go too far, 17-4 I think should be at the top of A.
Top of
Honestly.
A? That,
Yeah, I
that's
really
fair.
like that one.
That's fair. There's a lot of stuff going on in this map that this other one's, while they're good for what they have, don't really have as much going on this one.
Yeah.
But for how
I don't
much
think
it's going
it's
on it, it doesn't feel frantic, though.
yeah, yeah. I don't think it's quite S tier, but I do really like it.
That's fair. That's fair. I don't like this. Okay,
What?
I'm mixed on this map. It's
What?
this map is like, I don't know whether I want to love it or hate it.
Oh,
Because
I love this map.
this map is, so first of all, was it you who had like the crazy shove rescue chain to one turn
Oh,
this map?
yeah, I do. I do have a video of that. Yeah. You
Um,
wouldn't know it's a Fire Emblem video because the thumbnail is just like Patrick from SpongeBob. It's really stupid, but because it's when he's like shoving, like push it somewhere else.
yeah, it's just push Marcia somewhere else, yeah.
Yeah, no, exactly.
So this map, its gimmicks are twofold, and it's, first of all, you need to talk with Naesala with one of the Hawks and then Raisin
Yeah.
to get him and all the Ravens to leave the map. And if you don't kill a single Raven, which is hard because they are aggressive, you get the Night Band, which is the FE4 Night Ring, which gives a unit Canto.
Yeah. Which, generally speaking, is not super worth it, but I do still think the concept is like really kind of cool. One thing we forgot to mention about Chapter 18 is you also get Tanith at this point.
Yes.
Which has her unique skill
because
of
this is where,
Reinforce.
we were talking about, are there any other maps with partner units? Every map can have partner units.
Yeah. And that's super cool because what this map makes you do if you're like a completionist is you probably reinforce to bait out some of those early ballistas so that your flyer Laguz can go up and talk to Naesala and like bait him. And not only that, but you cannot talk to Naesala with Raisin. Naesala has to come to you. So you have to set up Raisin in a place that Naesala can reach him without getting like rolled over somewhere, while also baiting the Ravens mainly down in the bottom right to attack things like your archers or your bow units so they don't die to a counter or something.
This is where re-recruiting Shinon actually does pay off, because you give Shinon a Laguz Guard, and his Provoke and Archer status just make him absorb crows like no other.
Yeah, shine in with a Laguz Guard. That's iconic.
Yeah.
Think about that for a second. But no, that along with like just it being a defeat boss that you can also shove cheese in one turn is so hilarious to me. I love this map. I love this map no matter which way I play it. Like if I'm going for the Night Ring, I love it. If I cheese it, I love it. So I really like it.
Yeah, going through this map, this is also the first map where you see ballistas.
Yeah, you're right.
And Teleus ballistas work differently than any other ballistas in Fire Emblem, because the ballista is a hard tile on the map, and you stand on a tile next to the ballista in order to fire it. And the archers on these ballistas are not stationary. They will move and attack.
Yeah. And also with Teleus ballistas, they have a set might.
Yes.
So like a better unit will not do better on that ballista.
They might have better accuracy, I think, but not might. It doesn't calculate their strength.
Yeah, exactly. And the might is usually like pretty inconsequential, except for your flyers.
Because
since it's do a lot of damage.
Because it's kind of like crossbow rules. it's not calculating the strength, it's all the base might, and so hitting effective damage actually means something.
Yeah.
It's like a 25 base might ballista. Ooh, scary. Maybe it's 20. I don't know. And then you
Yeah.
double that to 40 or 50. It's like, oh, that
Like,
actually hurts.
whoa, okay.
Especially if it
Yeah.
crits.
Oh yeah. Ouch.
Killer ballistas, we'll talk about those later.
Yeah.
And you can take the ballistas and use them your own, but they are directional, so they can't fire as far towards the enemy as they can towards you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No,
All in all,
I really think this is an S tier. I think it's bottom of S. That's where I would put it. I
that's
love this
fair.
map
Like I
so
said, I have a
much.
love-hate relationship with this map just because I cannot guaranteed control all the stuff going on, and trying to get Nasala to come to me is for some reason so hard, because like I'll be in his range and he just won't move, and then it's like, oh wait, I have to get Rayson into his range because he talks
Yeah.
to Rayson and then you talk to him with one of the other hawks.
Yeah.
I
So,
think is the order.
well, yeah,
Let me
the
look that up.
Hawks talk first, because they're like, oh, Rayson's here, by the way,
Talk to
and
Nasala
then
with Ulki or Janaf, then let Nasala talk to Rayson.
yeah. And the cool part about this is like Nasala is crazy. By the way, his stats are
Mhm.
insane.
These are the
Um,
stats that he joins with in endgame if you bring him in.
so like that's crazy, but also Nasala has like the Raven Mastery skill, which is basically wind at 2 range. It's an activated skill. He won't retaliate at 2 range. He has to do it on his turn. So you can very easily bait him with an attack that's very weak, then talk with Janef or Alki, and then you'll probably be close enough to have him be able to fly to Rayson. As well as baiting the ballistas early with like Tanith's reinforced Pegasus Knights, because they'll be juicy bait for those guys. So it's, I don't know. I love what this map makes you do. It's so weird. Like just in general, it's so
It
weird,
kind of
and
feels
that's
like a
why I find it
Thracia
so
map
interesting.
almost.
It kind of does, honestly. You can still cheese it in one turn, but it has some weird, funny stuff that you can also play around with.
Yeah,
I've never thought
definitely.
about it that way, but I mean, I love Thracia, so maybe that all is consistent.
Yeah, no worries. I'll leave it in bottom of S
Yeah,
for
no, I
you.
love it, man. I
Okay,
appreciate it.
Talriga. How do we feel about
Oh,
Talriga? I
Talriga.
like this map, but I don't think it's S tier quality.
No, I don't think it's S either, but
Because you
I
have a
do like
couple
it.
of good stealables. Some physics staves, and I think a gem or two? Or is there a stat booster? One sec.
I'm not sure. I remember what the houses have. The houses have a rescue staff, a smite scroll. I think it's just 2, right? I think it's just 2 houses.
Yeah, there's a smite and a rescue staff. The only movement staff in the game
Yeah,
is
which
this
is
rescue staff.
notable.
Yeah, because
That's kind of cool.
Tellius doesn't believe in warp, only rewarp.
Yeah, because they gave everybody shove, so
Yeah, you don't need it.
you
Um,
don't need it.
and then some droppables, you get a provoke scroll from an enemy
Oh.
sniper who's totally not just
Oh
trying to be
yeah.
Shinon.
Totally on Shining too.
Yeah, you can steal some staves. You can theoretically steal a blizzard if you can get the sage to switch to Elwind, which is lighter and so is technically easier to steal. There's some killer weapons that you can potentially steal, and a lot of vulneraries.
Yeah. This one is your first introduction to like real wyverns too, because the only time you've seen them up to this point was like in 11 when Jill shows up, but you don't have to fight them.
And you
As
get
well.
1 or 2 in 18, I want to say, as
Yeah,
reinforcements if
yeah.
you wait a long time.
Well, no. So in 18, they're actually there at the start.
Oh yeah,
But
but they're at like
they're
the
in the
far
back.
corner. They
Yeah.
start all the way down here through the forest and then have to work their way up towards you.
Right. Yeah. And then there's like one wyvern in 17-2, but if you even fight it, it's not very strong.
Yeah, he's like in this corner or something. It doesn't
Yeah.
matter.
Yeah, it's a Benyon wyvern, not a Dayan wyvern, which is like
The
notable.
only Benyon Wyvern in Path of Radiance.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Which is
before
kind of
they
funny.
just become the only wyverns you ever see again in Radiant Dawn.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So like that's interesting.
Hmm.
They are incredibly bulky. Like you'll probably be able to one round them with like a good Sorin and Elwind or like Tanith's Sonic Sword
Hmm.
maybe. But bows will probably not even one round them unless they're like maybe forged. Like they
Yeah.
are bulky, bulky. And there's lots of them. So
Yeah. So this map, I kind of like. Enemies are starting to get pretty strong. It is a timed arrive map. It's not a
yes.
super strict turn limit, but you do have to book it, at least on hard, to get there. Um, you have the boss where everyone's gonna say, okay, yeah, if you talk with Jill, then she's gonna switch teams, which the game flags so hard in like three
Yeah.
different conversations of like, maybe we should leave Jill home, maybe we shouldn't bring Jill to fight her dad, maybe, if she does come up, she shouldn't talk to her dad, keeps
Yeah.
throwing this at you. So if you do it, it's your own fault because the game's
Oh, for
told you
sure.
3 times. Um, but what I do like here is with this again, it's that horseshoe shaped map. You can send your flyers over and you can rescue units over and kind of do like an airdrop invasion almost of this higher ground
Yeah.
because you have like some archers and wind sages, I want to say, on this upper ground to
Hmm.
discourage you from just flying over. Mildly discouraged because it's double effectiveness in Path of Radiance, but there is like a killer
Yeah.
bow sniper that is pretty threatening.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, on top of that, a lot of times, like where the squads of like 4 wyverns will spawn is at the top of like that snow area. So
yeah,
even if you do like the big like drop strat, like there's gonna be a lot at once that you have to take care of.
yeah.
So it's an option, but it doesn't like trivialize it in any way.
Hmm. Yeah, it's an option. The map has a lot of stuff going for it. There's a lot of strong enemies, kind of in the south. The village is guarded. It's not necessarily under a ton of threat. I think there are some bandits that will spawn in after a couple turns, but you don't have to like get it
I
turn 2.
I don't think that there are. I'm almost certain that there aren't
Yeah,
any
these
bandits.
orange tiles, or are those just wyvern spawns?
So there are wyvern spawns like late into the chapter in the top left.
Okay, so those are wyvern
Um,
spawns. Okay, yeah, so there's no
yeah, yeah,
brigands threatening the villages, but you do still want to get them quickly because of the map timer, and because there's just strong enemies that wait and spawn around them. So it's a
yeah,
different
and
sort of way of
smite.
defending the objective.
Yeah, and
Or
the smite
objective.
scroll is notable because, like, yeah, you already have Mordecai with smite, but what about Morim with smite? That's
Because
pretty crazy.
if you're
You know what I
bringing
mean?
Mordecai with smite, you're bringing him just because he has smite, or you're putting the
Yeah,
demi band on him because you want a bulkier tiger than Morim.
yeah.
But yeah, having two smiters can be fun.
Oh yeah, that's definitely very fun. I think I think this map is overall good. I think if this was a route map, it would be so horrible
Oh
because
yeah,
of
no,
how bulky everything is.
this is
But
not route map material at all. But I like the timed arrive map. I like the texture of the side objectives that are still worthwhile, but enough out of your way to make it so it's like, do you really want it?
yeah,
And then with
and
all the
even
reinforcement zones means, okay, if you're rushing, you're gonna get impacted. But if you take it slow, well, you're gonna risk, the time running out.
yeah, yeah, and even like the boss himself, like Shiharam, is not like a complete
Oh
pushover.
no, he is a bulky wyvern lord.
Yeah, so like, have fun with that because I believe, if I'm not
With the full
mistaken, he
guard.
has a full guard.
And an
Yeah, so
elixir.
yeah, and an elixir. So like, send your best. You know what I
Hmm.
mean? I like when the game makes you do that. Send your best.
Yep, Tomahawk, full guard, elixir, 20 strength, 21 defense.
Yeah, no, that's big. That's
Yeah, he's
big.
he's a beast. And that might not sound like much, but like I think 25 or 26 is the defense cap if you're not a general. So he is almost cap
Yeah,
defense. It's pretty like Ike's defense cap is 24.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, no,
Big bulky
I think
boy
that
at the end.
I think that's a fun map. I'm debating over chapter 6, maybe. Maybe not. I don't know. It's not over 16.
Hmm.
Um, I could go either way between it and 6, though, I
Yeah.
think.
It's a fun map. Let's talk about a map that I think this is definitely one of the
Ooh.
maps that for me outstays its welcome by a lot. Just
Yes.
because who came up with the idea that there would be like moats and rivers inside the castle? I don't think it's
Yeah.
F tier. I don't think it's like a horrible map. It's just
No.
a little bit of like a this map just feels like it takes longer than it needs to, and the sleep bishop doesn't help that. The sleep and the silence bishops don't help that.
Oh, yeah, because
But I
there's
will
3
say
of them, which is not
this
fun.
is when this is the map when it's like really you start feeling okay, I have my full paladin squad up and running, ready to go, geared out, because I think you also start getting the ability to forge silvers at this map, or it's either this one or the next one.
Okay. I don't remember off the top of my head,
This is
but
the
you're
map
probably
you
right.
just get the like you got the massive influx of gold right before chapter
Yeah.
20. It's chapter 19, you get all the gold, and then
Mhm.
chapter 20, and then um this one is like I hope you like doing a lot of rescue chaining if you want to get all the chests, because it's going to
Yeah.
take way too long because there's 2 over here, 2 over here, 1 over here, 2 over here, and 2 down here, which is not right next to your army. It is a run
Yeah,
up
it's
the
a full
entire map and
voyage.
around. Um,
To be fair, half the chests suck. Like, the parity scroll in this game is useless. The stiletto knife is bad.
if you want to know what you
Um,
get down here, it's a brave sword and a master seal.
yeah, the Master Seal is hilarious.
It's like,
Like,
hey,
ain't no way
you
you
know,
have an unpromoted unit at this point.
8
There's
maps
no
left,
way.
have a master seal.
I,
You get a
I, that's
Thoron,
NK.
you get an energy drop, and then you get the
And a
brave sword, and I think
talisman.
that's the best stuff from it. And a talisman. It's not too
Yeah,
bad.
yeah. Not too
Um,
bad. But the energy drop is probably the best thing.
Enna is not a great boss. You actually have a mini boss though. Um, Kasatai with a Brave Lance, who is more threatening. Okay, not more threatening than Enna, because stat wise, but he moves
No.
and attacks, and Enna doesn't, and has one
Yeah.
range.
Yeah, well, Enna's incredibly bulky.
Yeah, it's
Even with Lagu's weapons, she's so bulky.
yeah. So she is 25 defense, 25 resistance, 52 HP, 25 strength, and
Yeah.
18 speed. So with renewal, miracle, boon. So
And
renewal and miracle are the
elixir.
only ones that affect, and an elixir. Yeah, she will stand there, not taking damage from. Oh, I'll use thunder magic. Yeah, you get Thoron here, and assuming you even have Ilyana able to use it, good luck with that, because it's A rank and training magic tomes. Don't even. Uh,
Yeah.
and then it's like 8 base might, and so it's like okay, 16. She still has 25 resistance. You're not doing anything to her.
Yeah. I think this map, like, I do think it has like a good reason to be so large, because I mean it's the Dayan capital.
Yeah.
Like initially, this was presented as like the end of the game. You know what I
Yeah, you
mean?
have the build up.
To
It's like
the
you're used to, especially if you're playing other GBA Fire Emblems, you're used to your lords promoting 3 chapters before the end, you know?
yeah, yeah, pretty much.
And so it's like,
Um,
okay, you build this up, and then it's like, wait, where's the king? Where'd he go?
yeah,
Who's this
without a
dragon?
king.
Yeah,
yeah.
name of the map. Who's this
So
dragon? Yeah.
like that's not a defense for it being so long necessarily, but like I do think there's a reason for it. This is supposed to be like a big deal,
Yeah.
like in the story or whatever. A funny thing about Kasatai, the mini boss at the top,
With the Brave
his
Lance.
base defense. Well, Brave Lance. He also
Oh
has
wait,
Wrath.
yes, no, this is the this is the
So
beginning of I don't know if it's the beginning, but it's one of the most notable examples of armor knights have more resistance than generals in Path of Radiance hard
oh yeah,
mode.
they have higher defense than him too.
Yeah.
He has like 15 res and 15 defense, and then the unpromoted armor knights by him have like 18 or 19 defense.
So
It's
he
so
has
weird.
36 hit points, 14 defense, and
Oh,
16
14.
res.
Oh, that's even funnier.
And he does
Okay.
have Wrath if he's going to survive long enough to use it. He is he's potentially threatening if you allow him to attack you, but it's not really
Yeah.
anything to worry about.
Yeah. Quick little trivia thing about Maniac mode. The Armor Knights next to him, like his little mini squad up there, in Maniac mode also have Wrath, which is kind of funny.
Oh.
But in English, they do not. It's just him. So
Okay,
that's kind of
that's
cool.
fun.
Potentially more threatening or like more interesting or whatever. But
yeah,
I think the main thing on this map that I like about it, which most people probably won't agree with, is I like the sleep staves. Not because being slept is fun, but I like playing around status staves, especially because you can just barely outrange them with someone like Marcia and go in for the kill before they've slept somebody.
yeah.
I like Fire Emblem gameplay that makes you play preemptively for statuses like that. That's why I love Thracia so much. So
I think the thing about the sleep stave, particularly the sleep staff in this one, is that it's inside the throne room, and there's not
yeah,
really a way to get at him unless you're coming from the... No, even if you're coming from the south, it's all walls and solid stuff. It's hard to really get at him without having to be in range of sleep at least once, but that's where, Restore comes into play, or that's where Shove comes into play, because if you shove a unit, it takes a turn off of their sleep timer.
wait, it does? I didn't even know that.
I know that it does in Radiant Dawn, and I think it does in Path of Radiance.
That's funny. I didn't. That makes sense.
Yeah,
It's like,
no,
hey,
I
wake
remember
up.
in Radiant Dawn in 3 Endgame, Ike got slept at the very back of my army, and so it's like, okay, I either wait until Enna catches up to wake him up with Boone, or I shove him 5 times.
That's cool. I didn't actually know that. But this is like the one time in the game also that I'm like, yeah, I'll bring a pure water, for like the status stabs.
The extra, like, 14 avoid, I think it calculates to.
Yeah, it's something like that. It's notable because their hit rates are somewhat inconsistent already. They're not great, but it's like enough of a difference to be like, yeah, I'm gonna do it. This is like helpful. And you're right. The third sleep staff is a little harder to get to, but for me, that's just like incentive to send Marcia straight down, like that right side of the throne room, like over the water and stuff, with pure waters and things. There's also Taronio at the very bottom, recruitable by Ike, which is a free occult scroll. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, free occult scroll, pretty decent, bulky unit, has resolve. He's fun to use. He's not super good, but, you get him, and he's decent filler, I guess, if nothing else.
He's really good in the next game.
yeah, oh,
I'll give him that. But, yeah, I think this map overall is good. With the caveat that, it's kind of long. Like, it is.
Yeah, it's not a bad map. It is just a map where it's like, okay, you have a couple of good turns early on, and then it's a lot of turns of just, like, figuring out how you're going to move into the throne room and or waiting for everyone to wake up.
Yeah.
And then you're waiting for your thieves to make it all the way around the world.
Yeah, I mean, if you want all the chests, yeah, for sure. But, I mean, like I said before, half the chests are just garbage.
Unfortunately, the ones you want are spread out still. It's like one on the right, one in the top left, and one in the bottom center.
Yeah, but also worth noting, this is like one of the higher deployment numbers.
Yes, you have like 16 units, I want to say.
Yeah, it's a lot. So like you're definitely incentivized to just bring some people in to like ferry around Volk or whatever, which is
the deployment limit.
18. Yeah, no.
That's
pretty high.
No, wait, that's the turn limit for... Look, I don't know exactly. I'd have to like count all these up.
Okay. It's probably like 16 or something like that. But it's more than what you're probably training, most likely. So you'll probably have just like a couple spares in there for movement alone.
13.
13. Okay.
13. But most of the maps have been like 11.
Yeah.
So you do have a little bit of extra wiggle room for this map. But if you want a big deployment map, those are coming later.
Oh yeah, no, they're definitely coming later. So I would put 21 personally above Chapter 7. I keep relating things to Chapter 7 for some reason.
It's
I would
it's a
put it
decent.
above Chapter 7.
Look, Chapter 7 is just the midpoint of maps. It's like, it does some things. It's not great, it's not terrible, it just is.
Yeah, it just is.
Yeah.
And I think this one just is, but is more interesting.
Speaking of
I'll say
interesting
that.
maps, how do you feel about, I forget what the Japanese term is, but strength puzzles? Shove
Oh,
puzzles.
shove puzzles. So I was thinking about this
Or
map.
do you just kill the priests?
Well, okay, so there's you learn a lot about yourself, I think, playing through this map. Because you either decide, yeah, I'm a completionist, I want the Ashura staff, which is like your S rank staff of the game. And I'm not going to kill a single priest, even if some of them attack me. I'm not going to do it.
Yeah, good old Tominami in the middle, I think
Yeah,
his name is.
Tominami. Yep, Tominami.
Yeah.
So you can either learn that about yourself. You can also learn, I don't care about that stupid staff. I'm not wasting my time. I'm killing anything in my way. I'm getting my chests. I'm getting out of here. Or you can also learn, I'm going to get the Ashra staff, but not because I'm worried about being a completionist, not because I care that it's the S rank, but because I want to dance for Khalil to kill the boss with bolting on turn
Yes.
2 or
Yes,
1 or
because the
whatever.
boss is, I think, slowed down, weighed down by his heavy, like, no, it's a killer axe. It's
Yeah, it's a
18 speed.
killer
Okay,
axe
so he's
killer
not actually
bow.
super slow. But yeah, you can just zap bolting, dance bolting pretty
Yeah.
easily, and Khalil has enough magic. He has like 9 res. Um, though if you want the treasure, none of it is incredibly amazing, but you do have
Hmm.
some good stuff. On the left, you have Spirit Dust, Nosferatu, and Sleep. And on the right, you have a Tomahawk, Silver Bow, and Bolganon.
Yeah, the two best there are pretty much the Tomahawk and maybe the Spirit Dust, I would say. So they're
Mm-hmm.
okay. But no, like having like because Khalil might crit one of those two, which
Mm-hmm.
is just dead. But if she doesn't, if you have like a Soren or an Ilyana or something, you can just send a third attack and then he's for sure dead, which is hilarious.
Yeah. Fun
So
fact, you also have these 2 fully walled off rooms with bishops with silence staves.
yeah, and I've never seen them use them either. Have you?
Um, I think I've seen them try, but they have so low accuracy because you have to get a mage right up onto them for them to
Okay.
cast. And they're only silence, it's not sleep. And so,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah, not a ton to do that. This is a very slow map because the majority of the enemies are not aggressive. They will just hide behind the priests up here.
Yeah.
And so it's like, okay, you clear out the right, you clear out the left, you clear out the treasure rooms, there's some reinforcements that spawn, and then it's just making sure that you're not accidentally killing priests or getting stuck.
Yeah, yeah.
Because if you shove them the wrong way, you can get them stuck to a point where you have to either bolting or kill one to proceed.
Yeah,
Because you
you have
can't
to
rescue them because
shove.
they're enemies.
Yeah, you have to shove the two next to Tominami before shoving Tominami to the right or
Mm-hmm.
the left. Otherwise, you'll have to kill something.
Yeah.
But as terrible as this map is to play the normal way, the bolting way is so incredibly funny to me that like I kind of want to rank it like in a decent okay spot. It's very interesting. It's kind of iconic. It's
Mm-hmm.
so strange,
It's another one of
but
those, hey, I see what you were going for. This is an interesting way to do this map. And it's one of those things of Path of Radiance did a lot of interesting maps, what I'm going to call the low-tech way, just using units and placements and positioning and AI scripting. Fire Emblem Fates, especially Revelations, did a lot of complex maps the high-tech way of like, okay, cool, we can transform this map and actively change it, which in some ways in my mind made it actually less interesting because it's like, cool, we're just using a tertiary system instead of actually utilizing the units themselves that are on the map.
yeah, no, that makes
And
sense.
so it's like if this style of map was made in a modern Fire Emblem game, this map would not be made because they're not interested in using units as if they're boulders, you know?
Oh no, boulders.
But
Oh, that's gonna
shout
come
out.
up again.
Oh, that's coming up soon. But shout out to the boss for one of the best death quotes.
Yeah, no, that is
Wish
hilarious.
I'd
That is
brought more
hilarious.
priests or maybe some babies. It just uh, totally tells you, wears it on his sleeve, knows exactly what he's about. I'm putting this top of C tier because it's weird. It's weird and quirky enough to earn its place
Yeah, I think that's fine.
out
I think
of the
top C
trash
is
can.
fine.
Um, Speaking of the trash can, though, how do you feel about the Pitfall Bridge?
I don't hate this map nearly as much as everybody else, I
Mm-hmm.
will say. Because, like, the ballistas, if I recall correctly, have 20 might,
You
which, if you
have,
give the full guard to Marcia, like, she will not take any damage.
yeah, you have a couple ballistas and a stone thrower, I think,
Yeah, yeah.
which deals minor splash damage in an area.
Yeah, and even then, it's, like, pathetic. It's, like, single digit,
Yeah,
usually less than 5.
it deals
Minimum of
guaranteed
1, though.
damage, minimum of one. But yeah, it
But yeah.
is a map. I'm gonna say I don't really like the map, purely because, and here's my reasoning why. Fire Emblem Path of Radiance has a lot of map gimmicks that are either optional, or you can play around them in interesting ways that make the maps have more texture and feel more fun. This map's gimmick is literally there is only one walkable terrain path through the map, unless you're flying over it, and they have
Yeah.
a million archers and ballistas to try and dissuade you from flying over it.
Yeah, and the Blizzard Tome, too.
And
That
the
can hurt.
optimal route is so like tedious and confusing. It does create an issue where it's like, okay, you're watching the enemies to memorize the path that they move towards you, and then you walk back that path towards them. Um, the enemies are also, there are a lot of them, and they are pretty bulky and can deal some reasonable damage by this point. Like, there's some Feral 1 cats that are pretty threatening, as well as, the Siege Tomes and Ballistas, which don't deal a ton by their own, but if they stack up, they can be pretty threatening. And
Hmm.
then you have to worry about Har, who does, nope out of there and then fly around back behind you.
Yeah, he does. With a Brave Axe, too.
And
That's
so
fun.
it's one of those maps where it, like, this map makes the game kind of come to a screeching halt, whether or not you're engaging actively with the map. And it kind of, I don't hate it per se as much as other people, but I don't really like it either. It definitely is a map that the more I play, the less I want to replay it.
Yeah, no, and I understand why people hate it. Like, trust me.
Hmm.
The reason I hate it less overall is because, like, to be completely fair, I know where all the pitfalls are.
Ah, so
Um,
you've memorized it.
yeah, seriously, I just have it memorized. Like, I
Oh,
know exactly where I can go.
sorry for
Um,
everyone who just heard that
so,
Windows sound. Accidentally opened a program.
oh, okay. So like that's part of it, but also like knowing little things like how you can bypass pitfalls by having a flyer float over top of it and then having your ground units walk through them and things like that, I think can help. I do think Radiant Dawn's twist on this map is infinitely better though, because you can more readily exploit those kind of things. Like it's more important, I feel like, to do the flyer trick to avoid pitfalls,
Yeah,
as
didn't they
well as
also
just
have
like
like enemies with shine barriers that put them down on the walkable tiles?
yeah, no, there's the shine barriers, and then also just little things like I always use Shinin in FE10. He's like one of my favorite units in
Mm-hmm.
FE10. And when he's tier 3, he shoots from 3 range. And in that map, that actually helps like a lot.
Yeah.
So I feel like not only is it just designed in a better way, but it incentivizes things that help you play around it in a more natural way too. Whereas this one doesn't necessarily do all that.
Yeah. Something else I want to say is that for the FE9 version of the Pitfalls, if you fall in them, not only do you lose your turn, but you get paralyzed for the rest of the turn. So if you can't dance for someone and have them get out. They have to
Yeah,
stay in the
yeah.
pitfall. Whereas Radiant Dawn, if you're in a pitfall, you can dance for them and they can move out. If I remember right. Or maybe
Is
they
that right?
or do they get paralyzed too?
Well, I think
I
in
don't know. Either way,
FE9
you
what
get
happens
paralyzed
is
or stunned, and so even if you
yeah.
dance for them, you can't get them out that turn.
Yeah, so the thing, if I recall correctly, in FE9, if you get hit with a pitfall, you get stunned, but at the end of your player phase, it cures.
Yeah.
So you're not actually stunned for enemy phase. Whereas
Mm-hmm.
in Radiant Dawn, you are still stunned for the next enemy phase, and you
Mm-hmm.
won't counterattack.
Yeah,
So it is
which
a
is extra
little
brutal.
more
Okay.
punishing, yeah.
Yeah.
My least favorite part about this map, oddly enough, is the green units all the way on the left.
Oh, that
That
spawn at
just
like
drag it
turn
out.
10 or whatever, and then they
Yeah.
spawn in and slowly but surely Kanto suicide against Patrine.
Yeah, pretty much. They're so bad. Their hit rates are bad. Their speed is bad.
They're
They just drag it out
unpromoted
for no
Lance and
reason.
Bow Cavaliers fighting against the level 18 Paladin Patrine with like nearly maxed speed and defense.
Oh no, the worst part is they are promoted. That's the saddest thing,
Wait,
and they're
they were?
so
I thought
terrible.
they were
They are promoted.
unpromoted because they're
Nope,
so
they're all
bad.
promoted. They're terrible, and they drag it out for no good reason. Like the map clears faster if you take them out, like straight up. That's my least favorite part of it. It's not really the pitfalls and stuff,
Yeah,
but
because by the time they spawn, you're already like pretty much across the bridge. It's like turn 10 they
yeah.
spawn or something.
Yeah, it's pretty late into the map.
Mm-hmm.
So that's my biggest gripe as someone who's played this probably like 30 plus times.
Yeah.
But I'm not gonna sit here and say it's good, but I definitely don't hate it nearly as much as like the greater community does.
Yeah.
Out of the
I
maps
might
we've ranked,
drop
it's probably
the
still at the bottom though.
Yeah, I might drop the F tier. We might not actually need it.
No, we'll need it. We'll need it. Trust me.
Okay,
We'll
well,
need
how
it.
do you feel about Joffrey's defense battle reunion?
Love this one. This is an arrive map with ballistas, but you have a good flyer likely with a full guard, which is cool.
Mm-hmm.
There are two.
Don't bring him without a full guard. I've learned what happens then.
don't bring. Yeah, no, don't just send him in there. And then there's two more interesting skills with each of the houses. One is in the top right, one is in the bottom left. The top right is Savior, which is really, really good, especially for the next map. It's basically you give it to a unit, and if they rescue somebody, they do not take stat penalties, which is kind of cool, actually. And then the bottom left is the Nile Scroll, which in general, the Nile Scroll is complete garbage in Path of Radiance because most enemies don't have skills, and even if they do, they're not that
But there's
threatening.
one that does.
But there's one that does, and Nile Wrath is the way to go. I swear to God, and it's the Black Knight. So that's kind of cool. Also, the boss on this map will eventually move. He has parity, which is interesting. It's basically budget Nile.
Yeah, you turn off support bonuses and terrain bonuses.
Yeah, and skills.
Yeah.
And skills. But it's terrible in this game on your units because you want those things.
Yeah, and you can't choose to attack with parity instead, like you can with Gamble or like you can in Radiant Dawn.
Yeah. In Radiant Dawn, it actually has a niche, and it's like kind of cool. But here, it's just bad. Like for player units, it's bad. So that's cool. And again, as I said, it's an arrive map. Jeffrey is not in any real danger of dying, so there's not like frustration in that way.
Yeah, he has a Valkyrie, which helps him out quite a bit.
Yeah.
He can do some dumb things, but he doesn't move away from the defend point.
Correct.
The rest of his squad will.
Yeah, the rest of his squad will, and a couple of them will probably die by the time you get up there. But he's gonna be fine. Like his stats are so solid for the time he joins, which is nice. And then you also get the second Black Knight appearance on a playable map, which is very, very cool. He does not move this time, but he'll just be chilling there. Don't go near him.
Yeah, you can if you want some extra conversation and to get Ike just killed before.
Yeah.
It's fine. I could walk out and try to fight him after the map anyway.
Yeah, and I think it fits better narratively if you don't fight him during the map,
Mm-hmm.
because he says, like, oh, you've learned the importance of time and place. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? I think that's cool. So I like this map. I just think it's solid, like solid objective.
Mm-hmm.
You know, some interesting, more interesting skills, rather than just like, oh, this skill insta kills everything. They're like utility skills for like very specific things.
Yeah.
Nile for the Black Knight fight, and Savior for the next map. Oh God.
Oh yeah, have fun with that. Yeah, overall, I agree with what you said. Pretty solid map, really good. You have berserkers that spawn in that have pillage AI, and so they're gonna go for the houses. They spawn in on the river.
Oh yeah.
There's a lot more enemies on hard mode, but there's double that on Maniac if you're an idiot and playing Maniac mode. This is another Maniac mode.png type chapter.
Yep.
Um, yeah, none of the enemies are super threatening. You're starting to fight more promoted warriors and a couple sword masters, but a lot of the like cavaliers are still unpromoted for the most part.
Yeah.
So, yeah, nothing too threatening yet, but that's going to change pretty quickly.
Yeah. I would put this one above Talriga, though, personally.
Above Talriga? Okay.
I think it's just a smoother experience than Talriga, with like the same objective and stuff.
That's fair. That's fair.
Um,
Same objective, it's a timed arrive.
Yeah.
So for this map, you kind of took the lead on the last one, but do you want to eat some rock?
Oh boy. Okay, this is the worst map in the game. Like, we can talk about Clash all day. I don't like Clash either. I don't like Chapter 28, but this is the worst map in the game. Not only is this terrain where everybody is nerfed except for your flyers, not only is this an uphill battle and they are constantly throwing rocks down the hill that will deal 10 damage to anyone in their path, and their paths are not linear. They go all over the place. Not only does the boss fly around and has resolve and a 1 to 2 range weapon, but this is a freaking route map on top of all of that, and a long range ballista and stupid boulder like catapults. It's awful. It's awful. I hate this map so much.
So this is if I remember right, it's a 15 range. Is it an iron ballista or a killer ballista?
I think it's killer.
Either way, the ballista definitely has extra crit on it, as well as very high accuracy and high damage. If you have any flyer that does not have a full guard, they will die.
Yeah, stay away.
Like one shot, cross the map, 360 no scope, don't even. You can bait out the boss with a flyer if you have a full guard. Again, keep in mind he has a bolt axe and a ton of hit points and defense. Plus that resolve that we talked about, which does activate mid-combat because it's Path of Radiance.
Mm-hmm.
So you might start out doubling and then suddenly not double.
Yeah, exactly. He can be pretty hard to kill because I believe there's a physics staff somewhere on here. Like a bishop or something. Has
there's
physics staff.
A bishop,
and he has an elixir.
And he has an elixir. Only a vulnerary if you're not on hard.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a vulnerary, but it's elixir if you're on hard mode. You can flood. Something you can do to make it a little easier is if you have Tanith, you can flood the reinforcements to, blot out the sky and eat up all the ballista shots, or at least provide some more attractive targets. But sometimes they'll still attack your other units anyway because the Pegasus Knights have capped speed and are really dodgy.
Yeah. Now the only way to play this map and not completely lose your brain is Savior Marcia with a souped up Marcia carrying someone else like a souped up Boyd, just to savior them up to the very top and drop them with like forge 1 to 2 range weapons and just go nuts. That's the only way you play this map without absolutely losing it, because it is so slow. Everybody is going to be using Vulns like pretty much every turn because of the stupid rocks. You're moving up very slow. You have to kill every single enemy on the map there's like a purge drop, and that's it. Like the treasure's not good. The boss is like surprisingly hard to kill. Like I think even like a capped out Ike with like a forge will 3-shot him, which normally means he's going back to heal after the first round of combat
Yeah, healing
and or in
AI.
resolve range. So
Yep.
that can take a while. You'll
Healing
need like a
AI
couple
and
units to do that.
Tellius does make things a lot slower.
Yeah, so oh dude, this map is so awful. Every time I wish I could just skip it. It's so terrible.
Yeah, it's one of the few maps it's like, yeah, even when I'm, playing through and it's like I don't hate the map, but at the same time it's like why did you have to it's again, it's like the bridge has a combination of factors that make it really obnoxious. This map has a combination of really obnoxious factors. Like, okay, you can put the ballista there if you want to dissuade flying units. Don't also put in the half movement terrain, you know.
Yeah.
And then also all the boulders in the most windy paths, but they also pause every time they hit a unit to deal their damage.
Oh yeah.
Radiant Dawn boulders did two things differently that make them a lot more fun. Okay, three things. First of all, you push them down.
Yeah, that's fun.
Second of all, they always go in a straight line down the mountain, unless they hit like a hard rock where they like have to turn, I think, and they just like get pushed down to one side or the other. And three, they don't stop every time they hit a unit to deal its damage. They just pass right
Yeah.
through, and you just see it like boom, 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 boom.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. The
No,
Radiant
so
Dawn stone map is a very solid map. This is a very like interesting idea, failed the execution, but they do walk it back later in Radiant Dawn and make it a much better map.
yeah. I like there's just not a single redeeming quality about it. About chapter 25. There's not a single thing.
How do you
So,
feel about redeeming chapter 26 though? Because I don't hate Clash on principle. Clash is, though, what I'm going to call awakening map design. It's a bunch of units on an open field. That's Clash. If you're playing hard mode, it's twice as many units. If you're playing Maniac mode, it's 4 times as many units.
oh god. Oh yeah, that's where I quit.
Yeah, because every reinforcement squad that comes in has 8 wyverns or 8 paladins, as opposed to like the 5 that they have on hard.
Yeah. Oh my god. No.
Yeah,
That's
Maniac
awful.
is miserable. There are an absolute ton of enemies. Pretty much everyone. I think this is the first map where every single enemy is promoted on hard mode, at least.
I
Because
think
I'm
you're
scrolling
right.
through on this
Yeah.
hard mode picture, and there's no unpromoted enemies.
Yeah.
Like, maybe some of the wyverns that come in as reinforcements aren't, but I think they're all wyvern lords.
Yeah,
Um,
I think you're right. At the most, it's like 1 Wyvern Lord and 2 Wyvern Riders as reinforcements. But even then, I think they're all promoted.
yeah. This map gives a ton of bulky enemies, a lot of reinforcements. It does have some threatening enemies as well, some killer weapons. The Lagoos are hit pretty hard and are pretty fast. And the boss has a rune sword, so interesting choice.
Yeah.
This map is, however, Seas. It is not a route map. I want to say? Yeah. Seas the
Yeah,
red
yeah.
square with Ike. It's a Seas map, so you don't have to stand by and kill everything. Though, in order to get to the Seas point, you'll probably have to kill most things because they will block your path. The one thing that makes this map kind of funny to play, in my opinion, is the way that healing AI works. Is
Oh,
because
jeez, yeah.
if you're fighting like a warrior or a paladin and they proc healing AI and they see that the closest healing item is on one of the is a vulnerary on one of like the sages 2 steps away from the boss, they will run for 6 straight turns to the boss in order to take their vulnerary and begin using it.
Yeah.
The map is hilarious. And yes, the sages have physic, they will heal. It's not just the bishops. I think the sages have, I don't know if they all have physic, but like they have like some healing staves.
Yeah.
At
And
least on
then
hard. You know,
Yeah,
some men
they have
staves, it looks
something,
like.
and like the siege tomes.
Yeah, sages
They
have
all come
siege
in.
tomes and men staves. Bishops have physic, and there's a sleep bishop as well.
Yeah.
Um, there's a mix of weapons. There's some, a lot of the paladins have ranged weapons as well as close weapons. Like they'll have two different weapons. They'll have like a sword and a short axe or something.
Yeah, yeah. Okay.
It's like a steel blade and short axe seems like a pretty common thing, or like silver lance and short axe. So you're fighting enemies with a variety of weapons, who are all very bulky and decently fast. Uh, it's a slog. There's no
Yeah.
defensive terrain. There's nowhere to take cover. There's no choke points. You just gotta outmuscle the enemy. Luckily, you are allowed to do that because you have, I think, 20, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17 unit slots.
Yeah.
19 if you
Wow.
include Alencia and Ike.
Yeah.
The
So
most, and like pretty much any Fire Emblem outside of, unless you count like FE4 bringing your entire army.
yeah, or like maybe some parts of like FE6 or something like that.
FE6
Which
chapter 21
actually,
might be.
yeah, 21 is like pretty high deployment. I forget the number. It's funny that you say this is like Awakening map design, which like I do get that.
Well, it's
But
what I call Awakening map design, even though
yeah.
Awakening map design is kind of more emblematic of a lot of stairs with a lot of brutal turn one like
Yeah,
ambush
yeah.
spawn reinforcements.
Yeah. But no, I've thought about this map a lot, and like the problems with it for me are too many enemies, too bulky, and way too many like two range or 1 to 2 range weapons. If you reduce like one or two of those things, I think it becomes perfectly playable. Like if you had less enemies that were like still bulky but mostly attacked with like one range or something, it would feel more like a real battle, like a grand like battle where everyone's just kind of going at it.
Yeah.
But that's not really what it is. Like really what it is like, all right, are you using hand axes or javelins? No, then you're going to be sitting through a bunch of nothing attacks. And
But with the way that
it's just
enemies are
like,
bulky, and especially because the majority of enemies you're fighting that are reinforcements are paladins and wyvern lords, is that you can't kill them with a hand axe or a javelin unless you
yeah,
have the
exactly.
most bulked out, like max strength, max speed units with a forged thrown weapon.
Yeah.
Because the enemies are like, 40 hit points, 18 speed, 20 defense, something like that, of just like, maybe not those exact stats, but like
Yeah,
something
yeah.
like that. They're
Yeah, the
bulky and they have ranged weapons, and it's like, okay, if I had my forged steel and silver weapons, I'd be able to two shot them, to one round them on enemy phase. But you can't use those because every single paladin, or at least the vast majority of them, not every single one, there's one that has like a steel lance and a steel sword,
yeah.
but most of them have either a bow or a short axe or a javelin or short spear, something like that.
Yeah, and it's like it's so annoying exactly for that reason. And I feel like this map, oddly enough, would work so well in FE6 because the enemies would probably still be like good stats, but a lot of them would probably just have 1 or 2 range weapons. They also wouldn't have super canto. And it would
You
be
also
like
have
a
good
big battle that's
sages.
interesting. You'd also have good sages. You'd also have like better staff utility.
Because
And like
here's. Sorry,
I
I'm
don't know.
interrupting.
I feel like it would just work so much better in a game like FE6, but in this game, with how generally units are designed, even though it is a seize, it doesn't feel like a seize for most
Yeah.
of it, and that's like such a big problem for
Yeah,
me.
you're only thankful that it's a seize because it means you don't have to track down every single reinforcement that spawns.
Yeah, exactly.
But it does play a lot more like a route map because there's no side objectives. There's no reason to go any other direction unless you want to like deliberately kill off reinforcements as they spawn. There's nothing to the map. There's no strategic positions you can hold. There's no, the most you can do is like carefully advancing some of your units when you approach certain enemy clusters who aren't, who are on defensive AI and don't pull until you're in their range. That's the most that you're going to get out of like pure tactics wise. Aside
Yeah.
from, okay, I'm flying around with Marcia and Jill trying to pick off, the Siege Tome users and get out before I get totally surrounded by a Wyvern Lords.
Yeah. Well, and this map is exactly why I said like Adept is so important, like
Mm-hmm.
from 17-4. Because like even with all that in mind, like a stat capped Marcia with a forged javelin will probably still need that third attack.
Yeah.
If not the fourth one on a
Against the
lot of
Wyvern
these
Lords,
guys.
especially.
Yes, especially the Wyvern Lords, yeah. So it's like, and the Tigers too, honestly. Those Tigers are
Mm-hmm.
so bulky. So it's like I feel like this map just does not work in FE9, and I feel like in a game like FE6, I would love it. I would
That's
seriously
fair.
love it because like
Another.
imagine if this was like a map in Sakai or something, and like each
Mm-hmm.
group in this map is like archetypal. Like there's
Yeah.
a group of warriors, there's a group of like generals and halberdiers, there's a group of
And
paladins,
every
there's groups of
single.
wyverns.
And what's interesting, what's cool about it, because you can tell they were thinking about this, even if, it didn't really work out. Every single individual unit in that squad has a different weapon.
Yeah, no,
Like the
exactly.
swordmasters at the bottom, one has a Laguz sword, one has a killer sword, and one has a silver sword, I think.
Yeah. And then like the warriors, like there's a Laguz axe, there's a killer axe, there's a short axe. I think one of them has a bow or something. But like
Yeah.
imagine if this map was in FE6 and you could be like, all right, Rutger, Fear, go at these warriors.
Mm-hmm.
All right, Melody, go knock some heads over at the General Halberdier station. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
because
Like
that's what the
that
map
would be
is
fun.
asking you to do, because it has these, little segmented groups. Um, but unfortunately, because all the enemies in late game Path of Radiance just turn into massive stat blocks of blobs of hit points and defense, especially the Paladins and Wyvern Lords who attack at 2 range and then canto back, so you're not even dealing damage to them.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah,
So
I'm gonna put
I
it below the bridge. I'm debating it putting it, F tier.
Yeah, I mean, either of those placements would be
Because
totally
it's like,
fair. I do think the bridge is better,
I
but not
still
by a
in.
lot.
Yeah, it's like, I still enjoy Clash when I play it, but there's only so much enjoyment you can get. Because, yeah, it's like, I really want to be, send Zahark and, whoever their support partner is to deal with the warriors, send this person to deal with that. It's like, no. What you have to do is you're sending in, your 10 best units and 8 scrubs because you have the extra deployment slots. All the scrubs are piling up trying to deal enough chip damage to take out 2 warriors, while the rest of your units are barely not one rounding the rest of them.
Yeah. No, and I just wish like this would be a perfect opportunity to like have a reward for having like a good sword master or something like
Mm-hmm.
that.
Yeah.
Just like, oh, dude, a whole group of only axe enemies, like, go nuts. But it doesn't matter because half of them are going to attack them at 2 range. And if they don't double crit or something, they're not going to die
Mm-hmm.
anyway. And critting is so much less consistent than it is in a game like FE6.
Yeah, Path of Radiance also overall struggles from most of the units feeling pretty samey once you get to this level. They're
Yeah.
all killing stuff at 1 to 2 range and being pretty bulky. It's like sword masters are
Yeah.
a little bit different because they're faster and only have one, really one range.
Mhm.
And then your sages are different. I think also the map would feel a lot better if Path of Radiance actually had good sages, because the best ones you have are like
Yeah.
Khalil and Bastion, who are doubling but are barely not one rounding, and sometimes aren't quite doubling because their tomes weigh them down.
Yeah. Well, honestly, Bastion's probably not doubling anything. I think he only has like 16 speed.
No, Khalil joins with better stats than Bastion,
Yeah.
6 chapters earlier. Um,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, so Khalil is doubling, but she's not one rounding. A really, like a maxed out Sorin might be, but even then, it's like, okay, you can potentially you can't really one round because enemies have high resistance in this game. Plus, your sages are going to be at risk of dying in 2 rounds of combat because all these enemies are hitting on defense pretty solidly.
Yeah.
And so if you had better sages, I want to say better mages that are stronger and a little bulkier, this would be a chance for them to shine. Because I remember, like, this is how I handle Chapter 21 most of the time. I warp Lou to a mountain and have him with a stacked inventory of air calibers, and he just takes out every single Wyvern Lord because that's what you do with air caliber.
Yeah, no, exactly. At least like in that scenario, you get like the power fantasy. You know
hmm
what I mean? Like you just get to watch him go crazy.
Yeah, and
But
your
like it's
bulky units
sad
like
to
Percival aren't one-rounding on enemy phase against the
yeah.
Wyverns, but you can set up units that can.
Yeah, exactly. And like it's just so sad to see like a capped out Soren not one round something because the
hmm
tome might is just so terrible.
Yeah, it's like best tome might you're gonna get is literally like a forged thunder tome.
Yeah, it's so sad.
Yeah.
So I don't know. This map would work so much better in a different game, but it just does not work here.
Yeah, the extra bulk of all the Path of Radiance units mixed with the very limited ways of killing enemies that you have, it doesn't really work
Yeah.
out. Speaking of map that
Yeah.
does work out, though, let's talk about a good map for a change, or at least a
Yeah.
an interesting map. Moment
This
of
is the
Fate.
last great map, I think.
Yeah, so Moment of Fate, you have an entryway that you can go forward, left, or right in, and then you go up, and then you have doors which you have to open to go forward, or you can open the side doors to like treasure rooms, and then they all converge in the final room, where you can then, you go up, you seize the map, and then Ike has his showdown with the Black Knight.
Oh yeah.
So it is a seize
So
map. It has 3 different routes to go down, and you have, I think there's some interesting stuff here. What do you want to say about it first?
yeah, so I mean technically it's an arrive map, which is weird because Ike has to get to that
No, it says it's
doors
a
you
seize map.
is it? I'm
Seize
almost
the
certain
red
it's
square with
arrive.
Ike is what WOD says. But WOD has been wrong before.
I'm almost certain it's arrive. But anyway,
hmm
so the cool things about this map, besides like the Black Knight fight implications and stuff, is both sides of the map start with thieves and they are running to the top doors, and that entire top section is roofed off. So you won't see actually what's up there, and you don't want them to open it up if you're not ready.
Because they are a lot of enemies in there.
Yeah, there's a lot of enemies in there. There's a sleep staff, there's some feral ones, which are kind of annoying. And there's also a couple chests that you want, notably the resolve scroll, because that skill is just insane. Like on
Yep.
any unit, it's just insane.
Don't forget to have
Um,
Ike eat the scroll mid-map, because that's how mechanics work, to give him Wrath Resolve for the Black Knight fight.
yeah, yeah. Fight
Yeah,
the Black Knight with Wrath Resolve, guys. Don't forget.
yeah.
Uh, but I
Can't
like
do that.
the little bit of urgency with the thieves.
One of them has the double bow.
One of them does have the double bow. It's not good, but it is the double
4
bow.
range. Let's
Four
go.
range and what, like 9 might,
Oh, it's worse
something
than
like
that.
that.
It's like the same might as a. I think it's like 4 range and like 7 might.
Oh, that's even worse because the steel I think is 9.
One sec, let me
Oh,
look it up
jeez.
while you're
But
talking more
yeah.
about it.
Anyway, 4 range is just like, what are you doing with that? Honestly, what are you doing with
You're
that?
shooting dragons from through the trees. That's what you're doing. 7 might,
Yeah,
yes.
for 0 damage.
S
Yeah.
rank, 7 might. Does give +3 strength when equipped, is what it says. I don't think that's true. It might be true, actually. You do have some minor stat adjustment weapons.
Huh. Yeah, still not going to use it, but it is
No.
funny. It is funny.
Yeah,
Way better
no,
than
it's
Radiant
it's
Dawn.
7 might, 10 weight, 65 hit,
Oh, what
and only
the?
20 uses.
Nah. Nah. No way.
Yeah, no, it's like the least accurate bow in the game, and has only 4 range. Not 2 to 4, 4.
Yeah. That's, I don't know what they were cooking with that. That's just terrible.
Oh, yeah.
Um, but anyway, it's a fun map. I like that it's ideal to split your army up into 2 or maybe 2.5-ish teams. One to take out the middle room, which is probably the least pressing, and then strong teams on the left and the right side. Because the right side is all Feral One Lagoos, and then the left side is like all Generals.
Mm-hmm.
And that side has the Sleep Staff. There's a Silence on the right side, but that's not really all that scary. I forget if I said it already, but there's a Bolting Sage in that center room at the start, which can be kind of annoying too. I do believe there's also a Physic chest, which is worth mentioning. There's a Spear chest, I believe.
Yeah, so the
Along with
chests
Resolve.
you have Bolganone, Resolve, Lagoo's Axe, Fortify. So the only Fortify staff, I
Oh,
think,
Fortify.
is in a chest. Spear, Silverlance, Physic, Double Bow on a Thief, and then the bunch of keys from various
Yeah.
enemies, and the boss drops the last Occult Scroll of the game.
Yep. Okay. But yeah, no, what do you think about this map? Are you a fan of it as well? Do you like it?
This is the last map where you have to, like... It feels like this is the last map where you have to really be careful with your units, because, you know, the Bolting Sage is pretty threatening. You have... yes, you know, all the Armor Knights that are stronger than their generals that are in the middle of them, at least have more defense. Clusters of units. The feral ones are pretty threatening, at least the cats are. The birds less so. I don't know. I don't have like too many super strong opinions about this map. I like that it has so many like open paths where it's like, okay, if you don't want the treasure, you can just run right up the center.
Yeah.
But if you do that, you're also like, you know, aggroing everything around you. I like that you're
Yeah.
encouraged to chase the thieves, and that there's not too many enemies on either side. But that once you open the doors, that's actually where like the other half of the enemies are on the map, is behind the doors.
Oh yeah, for sure.
The
There's a lot of
center,
traffic up there.
yeah, the center gives some uh, interesting play with that, with how the like the sleep staves are and their ranges, as well as you want to get in there with the siege tome. That's what the double bow is for. Except you
Yeah.
can't use it to fire over walls, because that doesn't work in Path of Radiance.
Oh, imagine.
Or, or wait, I forget. Do they scale the walls as if they're an extra two thick? I think someone said, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I think I read somewhere that the walls are calculated for range damage as if they're two extra tiles thick. So a double bow could theoretically shoot over a wall in Path of Radiance where no other bow can. That's why you get like the weird ranges of
Aw.
siege tomes, because they have to calculate through walls, and it's like taking up more effective tiles. Kind of like how like the wall of the ship is an extra tile. It's like
Right.
both sides of the wall count as an extra tile, I want to say. Is I
Yeah,
think how it works.
I can't confirm or deny the double bow thing over walls. I've never tried it
I've
or
never
seen
had a
it.
sniper with S rank bows that I've thought ahead to bring and use the double bow with on this map.
Yeah. But I do believe walls. I know I calculated it once.
Mm-hmm.
But walls for stabs and siege tomes is either 2 or 3. I believe each tile is 2.
Okay.
Um,
Yeah,
because
because it
I
does
was looking
limit
at that in
your
like 21.
yeah, because it does limit your range, and so these ranges are not like perfect diamonds. You know, you have
Right.
the extra interplay with them. I don't know. This map doesn't really excite me, but it also has enough stuff going on to it that it's not like boring. I think by this point I'm just so late in the game that I'm just thinking about the Black Knight fight when I'm in this map, and I'm already kind of like halfway checked out of it while I'm playing it. You know.
Yeah, which is technically part of the map that we can talk about.
It's the map is a preamble to the most iconic 1v1 in Fire Emblem history.
Yeah, it probably is up there for sure, if not the one. In before all the comments saying Chapter 27 sucks because the Ike Black Knight fight is just a lottery ticket.
It's like
No, train missed.
train missed and max out Ike's strength, and it is mathematically solved. Um,
Yeah. Skills are just the
Otherwise,
cherry on top.
use skills and get some randomness, and you'll have like a 60% chance of winning without mist if you have Wrath Resolve. Sorry,
Yeah,
Wrath
yeah. I did
Nihil.
the
I said
yeah I
Wrath
did
Resolve.
the
Whoops.
that person.
You
Oh
did the
no.
math for it, and that was the very first video of yours that I saw.
Oh yeah, that was the
Yeah,
first one,
that was
wasn't it?
that was
That's
fun,
funny.
and that's why it's like you're just always gonna be the Path of Radiance person. I'm sorry, you're the Ike
That's
guy.
dude. I am the ike guy. I will take that. I will take
Alrighty.
that.
So yeah,
But yeah, I
this map.
think
Do
I'd
we
place
consider
that.
the Black Knight fight to even be really a notable part of the map, like for tiering reasons? Because I think that fight,
Mm,
while it's interesting and intense and is a pinnacle moment,
you
shouldn't
don't have
really
to do
have
it.
basis on this map because it's kind of a nothing. You're either winning the fight or you're losing it.
Yeah. I mean, I think you could say a similar thing about defend maps, though.
Hmm.
Like, you don't have to really do anything on some of them.
A
Not chapter
well, I
13, of
mean,
course, but
it's the
you
thing
know.
of like a well-designed defend map will make you have to do some things, but
Right, exactly. I would place this.
I guess here's the thing: the question we come back to: better or worse than Chapter 7?
I think it's. Yeah, good call. I think it's above 7, below 21. If we're
Okay.
not counting the Ike Black Knight fight iconicness
Yeah, I
of the
think
whole
we're
thing.
not going to take the map down for it, but I'm not really going to
Yeah.
boost it for it either.
Yeah, no, that's fair. That's fair.
So here's a map that I don't like.
I don't like this one either.
I'm going to say worse than the Stones map because at least the Stones map tried to do something interesting. This map's just boring.
Yeah, dude, this map, I still don't think it's worse than Eat Rock personally,
It's
but
definitely F tier map, and this is in a world where I considered Clash to maybe be bottom of D tier.
yeah, I think where you have it right now is probably where I would put it. Like,
Yeah.
because this map has a lot of problems. One, it's the map before Endgame, so you're like, can we just like get to the last chapter, please? But on top of that, Ike has Ragnell now and is your best unit besides movement.
But Ike having Ragnar also doesn't even necessarily matter too much outside of like, it's strong and has infinite durability. But the 1-2 range doesn't become a factor because 90% of the enemies on this map are
Yeah.
Lagoos, and the only other ones that aren't Lagoos are mages with siege domes.
Yeah, no, exactly. Well, it's like the thing for me is like when I get to this point in the game, I'm like, okay, Ike is just my best combat unit. And even if the 1-2 range doesn't come into play too much here, he's still the best unit
Mhm.
combat wise, purely combat wise, especially if he has Wrath and Resolve and stuff like
Yeah.
that. Um, but like also Ragnell doesn't have any durability. It's not like you get the Binding Blade and you have to like choose when you use it.
Rationing it out, yeah.
Yeah, it's like you can just send Ike in there with the Lagoose guard,
Don't
and
remind me.
he'll just take out the whole map, and it's like, why would I even bother moving everybody else when the map is gonna go faster? Just letting Ike do it all. The only hurdle is Sleep Bishop. That's like the only thing keeping you from just like rushing it,
Mhm.
which also hurts team play because you might think like, yeah, of course it's boring if you solo it with Ike, but if you're going for like a faster strategy with like Marcia over like those tree tiles or whatever, she's probably gonna get slept, if not just absolutely mauled by all the feral ones who have
Mhm.
high hit rates. So it's just like no
Yeah.
matter what, it's awful.
Yeah, those dragons don't mess around. They hit
They
hard
don't.
and are very accurate. The feral ones, the tigers, hit hard, pretty accurate. The cats hit pretty hard, are very fast. And then it's like, okay, you have really bulky defensive units that can kind of tank those. And then you're getting hit by 3 siege tomes once you hit, the end of the map.
Yeah.
There's not really, there's no same with Clash, same with all the other maps in bottom tier. There's no side objectives, there's no real bonuses. There's nothing that is worth stealing by this point in the map. It's like, okay, yeah, steal an extra physics staff for the final chapter of the game.
Yeah.
And the fact that mages are terrible and that effective damage is only double really hinders this map so much, because I think you could do the Lagoos a lot more interesting if the mages were good, because Lagoos have
Yeah.
built-in magic weaknesses. They deliberately hindered mages in order to make it so that they don't just steamroll Lagoos, and made it so they get steamrolled by everything, including Lagoos.
Yeah, no, like imagine if you could just one round dragons with like, or like nearly one round with like Sorin and a Thunder Tome or something. Like that's just not gonna
You
happen
can
in this
do some
game.
meaningful damage with bolting through Khalil
Yeah,
bolting if you still have any bolting uses left.
yeah,
Um,
yeah,
but there's 3 dragons. I think there's like 4 or 5 on higher difficulties.
yeah.
I don't
It's
even want to
probably
know
somewhere
what this
around
map
there.
looks like on Maddening. Probably absolutely miserable.
I'll never know. I never got to that point, so I'm sure it's terrible though.
Yeah, it
But yeah,
looks
no,
like
there's
there's
just like
5 dragons on hard.
five. Okay, and one of them won't move. He's placed like directly in front of the boss
Yeah.
too. But it's like this map is again, it's like the anticipation of we're almost at the final chapter, so like kind of get this one over with, paired
Yeah.
with all these bulky enemies in like high density, like they're all just in this big blob on the left for the most part.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're fighting one, you're most likely fighting five. And it's so obviously discourages playing fast because of things like the bolting, which the boss will hit that bolting
Oh yeah,
sometimes, like
no, he's
straight
super
up.
accurate.
Um, Along with a sleep staff and everything just having high hit rates for once.
Mm-hmm.
It's just like,
Yeah.
oh, dude.
Also, shoutouts to the Meteor Mage on hard, who's literally standing in the middle of the trees.
Yeah, yeah, he's just chilling on the other side.
Just a turret. No, right in the middle of the trees. I think it's like there's one tile you can attack him from at 2 range, and that's it.
Yeah, it might even be 3 range. I forget. I normally just send Marcia to kill him, but yeah, that's
Yeah.
annoying.
Yeah.
That's what the double bow's
It's
for.
an annoying map.
Oh.
Yeah, no, seriously. It is that guy is the double bows for. Yeah, no. Yeah, it definitely, even if Clash wasn't, this is definitely easily bottom 3 maps. Oh, I just messed up everything by using the scroll wheel. Okay, good. I
Oh.
put it back. Right.
Okay.
I put it back. Okay. Well,
All right, but yeah, it's bad.
last but not least, but also not best, here's the final map. And I have some interesting thoughts about the final map. I don't like the final map of Path of Radiance. Like, I don't think it's a terrible, terrible map, but I don't think it's good.
Go off, King.
It's like, it'll be better than a map that has no point. A map that's like purposeless. But I still kind of feel like half the map has no point. Because, like, okay, you start here. It's a giant map. The Crimea Castle is huge. The courtyard, the gardens, the everything. It's beautiful. I love it. It's symmetrical. It
Oh
just looks
yeah.
wonderful. But we're not rating these maps on how well designed they are visually. We're rating them on how they play. And this map sucks.
I will give it credit. I feel like in a lot of ways this is a better Clash.
Yeah. Which is
Because
not saying much.
it's not saying much, but I do think it's worth noting that like a lot of the groups that are spread out are like archetypal in the same way that Clash has like groups of like the
Yeah, you
same
have
class,
3
but it's
sword
much smaller
masters, 3
doses.
paladins. A lot of enemies have their occult scroll skill. It's
Yeah,
like you'll have some
yeah.
sword masters with Astra, some paladins with soul, stuff like that.
Actually, I don't think the paladins have soul, but there's one that has Nile, which is hilarious.
Oh yeah, no. And then you have the
Um,
mini boss that has that as well. It has the Wishblade.
oh yeah, yeah, yeah. Bryce had, what does he have? I forget.
He holds a speed wings. No, okay, he has guard and daunt.
Oh, guard. That's what it was. Yeah. So he has guard. There's a paladin reinforcement with Nile. A warrior and a wyvern both have vantage, which is a little funny. And then the Astra Sword Master is like actually like maybe watch out for that, maybe. But I think like that same type of idea being in much smaller doses, generally speaking, is kind of cool. And you can at this point kind of just gun Ike up by himself through that center row
Yeah.
I don't
Here's where
know.
my hot take. Maybe it's not a hot take. Ashnard having 10 move makes him a better boss, but makes the rest of the map worse. Because the rest of the map becomes pointless as soon as you enter his movement range. Because who's
Yeah.
ever been to the top right and top left corners? Who's ever actually been there? Who's ever, gotten their units all the way up to the top center? Tell me in the comments if you have, without
So
like running Ashnard around the middle of the map for like 10 turns.
yeah.
You
Well, the
haven't.
only only way that happens is if I on hard mode, of course, because on
Mm-hmm.
normal mode he does not move, so
Yeah.
you have to go up there. The only way that happens on hard mode, and I've done it, is if you deploy like just Ike and your Super Marcia with Savior likely, and all you do is
It's
ferry him
airdrop.
up to one of those sides.
Ike
Like
is the
that's all you do.
ICBM that Marcia is carrying. Ike is the payload that Marcia is
Yeah, the
carrying.
payload, yeah. And like if you do that, you'll get up there before Ashnard is triggered, and you'll likely trigger him by being in his movement range rather than him being like, all right, I'm bored, I'm coming out. But other
Ashnard
than that,
triggers. Triggered.
triggered. But other than that, like playing the map in a quote unquote normal way, he will come to you when it's time. Like you're not getting all the way up there, straight
No.
up.
Yeah.
I don't love it. I think it's fine, but really to me, this is just like, all right, let's get Ike up there, Wrath Resolve, call it a day. Like
Yeah.
we're just finishing up the run. That's like basically it.
Pretty much.
I don't think it's particularly exciting beyond
If
that.
you don't plan ahead and bring Wrath Resolve on Ike, you have a heck of a boss fight on your hands. And then the rest of your units are scrambling to try and keep the rest of the enemies away whilst you deal with the problem.
Yeah.
Because Ike will deal like 12 damage back to him without the Wrath Resolve boosts, which are insane.
Yeah, with Wrath Resolve, he does 22 times 2 with capped stats and
22
50
times
crit.
2 and 50 plus whatever crit.
Yeah, yeah. Well, it'll always be 50 because he has like the Black Knight blessed armor,
Oh, yes,
basically.
yes, yes. It's like.
So it'll be a set 50.
Okay.
So like on average, he will one round Berserk Ashnard, like straight up.
Yeah.
In one round of combat, which is funny.
So fun, but also it's like if you don't have that, then it's Ike, Enna, and whatever your Laguz is are the only units that can damage Ashnard, and even they
Yeah.
don't do the best job. Enna or Nasir are gonna maybe fight a little bit. Your Laguz that you bring in can actually kind of hold their own, and then it's really Ike, and then you just trying to heal him up outside of Ashnard's attack range, because Ashnard will just murk whoever else is in his range that he can one
Oh yeah.
round. Yeah, Ashnard is an absolutely terrifying final boss, one of the better, in theory, designed bosses, or at least one of the more fearsome final bosses. But like I said, I think because he's such that omnipresent figure, the rest of the map kind of gets forgotten.
Yeah, no, that's true.
You're fighting up to
And
get into the center and control the center, and then you're fighting, that the Astra Swordmaster and whoever else that are flanking you, and then it's just setting the scene for the showdown with Ashnard.
yeah, no, and that's why I feel like it's just all right. Let's get Ike up there. Let's kill Ashnard. Wrap it up. You know what I mean? Like I do feel like I ignore a lot of the rest of it. Generally speaking.
Yeah, it's another example of, different ways in which Fire Emblem kind of drops the ball at the end game. Is
Yeah.
just, you get 3 maps in a row. Okay, 2 maps. I'm not a huge fan of 26, but, it's not a bad map. It's pretty alright. It's a solid B. I'm not going
Yeah,
to put
it's
it in, like,
fine.
A
It's
tier.
fine.
It's fine. It's decently playable. I'm not unhappy about it. But the last 2 maps are just not good, and Clash is not good, and the Stone map is not good. All of the worst maps in the game are either front loaded or back loaded.
Yeah. No, and like I said before, I don't hate chapter 23 nearly as much as most people.
Hmm.
But when I get to chapter 24 and I finish chapter 24, I kind of say goodbye to my fun. Like comparatively, right? Like I still like the game. I'm going to finish the run, but like the fun parts are over, and I know
Yeah.
that cuz the rest of it honestly sucks.
Yeah, the end of Path of Radiance definitely is not, the epic conclusion that you want. It's kind of like, okay, see these giant muscly dudes just slap each other around for a while.
Yeah. Oh,
Uh,
dude. It could have been so good too. It could have been
anyway,
so good.
I thought we were gonna record for like, 2, maybe a little bit longer. We're pushing 3.5 hours.
Yep, we've been here a while. We like to ramble.
But yeah, that's Path of Radiance. Any horrible maps you want to throw out of whatever tiers they're in before I potentially name the tiers?
Well, S tier is perfect. Call that the Ike tier. And then I'm debating 17-4 being an S. I could maybe do that instead of top of A. Uh, we can go with that with whatever you think.
I mean, that
I'm
leaves
down for
chapter
either
1
one.
for top of A, which I think is fair. It
It's a
sounds
little
dumb.
weird, but like
It
it
sounds
kind of makes
weird.
sense.
But like this is like the pinnacle for what most chapter 1s should aspire to be, almost. And I don't really like any of these other maps enough to put them over it. You
That's
know?
fine. I
It
really like 16, but that's fair.
Yeah, like
That's
I like
fair.
all of these maps. I think all the B tier ones are like okay at worst.
Yeah.
C tier is like, I like parts of the maps, but they're not like the most enjoyable to play through all the time. D tier is where you start really hitting these maps just
Yeah.
kind of overstay their welcome. And F
Yeah.
tier is like I don't actively don't want to play them.
Yeah, just why? Why?
Yeah.
Exactly why? But yeah, no, I think that's fair. Like the D tier is overstays its welcome or whatever. That's a good way of putting it.
Oh, why is the formatting so awful?
Yeah, that's odd. I've never seen that.
Yeah, for some reason it's like left aligned. What?
What the? That's
Uh,
I've
tier
never seen it do
maker.
that. Tier maker
Tier
plus.
maker. Fix your site. C tier is meh, or like interesting concept
Yeah, interesting concept.
slash meh execution.
Yeah. Perfectly said.
Yeah, B tier are
These are just like overall
pretty fun.
solid, pretty fun.
That makes me kind of want to put like a couple of these down into C tier.
You could probably put well, I don't know. I think the pretty fun. Well, okay. I honestly think chapter 7's maybe still too high. I keep talking about chapter 7. But I don't know. The more I think about chapter 7, the less I like it. I would put that lower in the current tier or maybe in the tier below it. Too long. Yeah, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That's a good way of putting it.
Which makes me want to put this up a little bit. I know that's blasphemy, but it's like, too long or just like poorly designed.
Yeah. I'm just thinking now because, like, I personally enjoy 17-1 more than chapter 7. And I think I enjoy 14 more than chapter 7 as well. Because I don't know, like, chapter 7 is the first one that really does overstay its welcome. You know what I mean? So I wonder if that should be lower.
We'll put it at the top of C tier. How about that?
Yeah.
Just give
Yeah,
it
I
D,
think
because
that's
I
fine.
honestly enjoy 7, but maybe it's just because in my mind it's like that set piece of like it's Grail's last hurrah. It's it's the last time you have to really deal with, not the scrub squad, but like being locked to the Grail Mercs before you really start
Yeah.
branching out. And so everyone has that opportunity to do what they do best in it, which is why I like it. But I do
Mhm.
also agree that it's like, okay, you have a couple of close turns, and then it just kind of like slugs on from there.
Yeah.
Interesting concept, May execution. I think the top of that.
Yeah, chapter
Um,
7 is also the first time you hear the recruitment theme, which is awesome. I'll give it
does
that.
that mean I'll put the prologue above it because it's pretty fun?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Well, I mean, it's for a prologue. I think it's a very good prologue.
Yes, it's definitely a top tier prologue. If we're rating first maps, it's like up there,
Yeah,
like
yeah.
A tier. But any of these other maps you want to switch around?
I think we're overall looking pretty good.
I kind of want to drop Dayan Castle a little bit lower, just because the overstaying its welcome stuff.
Yeah, I could see that placing where you have it there. I would put 14 maybe over 27 again if we're not including like the Black Knight
Yeah,
stuff.
27 is kind of eh, you know. It's not bad,
Yeah.
but it doesn't
Yeah, yeah.
excite me. It doesn't get me going.
Yeah, yeah. I don't really have any like
And this is
glaring
where it's
problems with
like
it though.
if it if it wasn't for the fact that it always becomes just a lockjam, I want to put this map higher because I think it's so iconic.
Yeah.
But iconic
Yeah.
being iconic only gets you so far.
Yeah, no, I definitely relate to that feeling though. I know exactly what you mean.
I
S
almost want
tier
to
is
put
looking
this map
nice
higher
though.
though, you know?
Oh, the Arrive. I'd be down for that. I like that map a good bit too.
And then maybe the jail can be the top of this tier. Or does that feel
Uh,
wrong dethroning
no,
this?
I think that feels wrong. I think chapter 8's where it's supposed to be. I would
Yeah.
put, I would maybe put the Arrive 17 map maybe above 6,
Yeah, the
honestly.
more I think about 6, the more I'm like, this map does kind of just fall into a similar problem with some other maps where it's like,
It
it.
can.
I think it's pretty fun. I don't think it necessarily deserves, A tier. It's hard to say because you're working with so few units, but at the same
Yeah.
time, that sometimes is part of the charm of it.
I do think it's solid and like I like it when I get to it and everything, but I like it's this weird thing. It's like
Versus
chapter 8
these
is
other maps
so
where it feels
cool.
like you have a lot more decision making to do, this one
Oh, for
feels like
sure.
there's less decisions to be made. There's like one or two decisions at most to make on these maps.
Yeah.
Whereas these maps have a couple more, and these maps are, again, it's that freedom of map design, the complexity, but also with simple pieces that Path of Radiance does so well.
Yeah, no, that S tier, just looking at the screenshots makes me happy. I love those four so much.
Yeah, it's like if I could play a game that's just like maps like these four, I would love it so much.
Oh man.
At the
The
end of this
actual
tier
perfect
list,
game.
look, at the end of doing all of these tier lists, I'm just gonna take a look at all the S tier maps from every game and be like, I could just assemble a game out of only S tier maps. That'd be great.
Yeah.
It would not flow
Man.
together at all, but
No,
we'd have
but it would
no
be cool.
tutorials. We'd have no like end game maps. It would just be a lot of like mid game, interesting, high decision making maps with a lot of bonus objectives.
Heck yeah.
But I know my
That'd
thing and I know
be
what I
funny.
like, so. And then the maps at the bottom really are the bottom because either they don't have bonus objectives or the bonus objectives are like really obnoxious.
Yeah. Yeah, the like chapter nine's bonus objectives are just inconsequential.
They're out here in the middle of nowhere, and the only reason they exist is to give something for that half of the map to do.
Yeah.
Um, and meanwhile, the chapter 12 bonus objectives are just wait for longer.
Yeah,
Don't
just
don't
wait.
kill the birds too quickly.
Yeah, which like sucks. Like I agree that's bad, but
Don't aggro the
the
boss
items
too
are
quickly.
good.
The items are
The
very good.
items
It's like
are good.
how much I feel like putting it out of F tier is what good rewards get you, when the
Yeah.
way to get those rewards is still obnoxious.
Yeah, for sure. For sure.
But
But
yeah,
yeah, I think it looks good to me.
yeah, I
I'll
think it
I'll
does
keep with
too.
that.
I've kept us up for, it's approaching 4 hours now, so
Oh my god.
sorry. Hope you don't have
That's
work
all
in the
good.
morning.
Oh, I do, but I'll be fine. It'll be an easy
Alrighty.
day.
Well, I'm gonna let you go then. Thanks, Elut. Anything you want to plug? Anything you want to talk about before you go?
Nope. This is just my chance to talk about FE9 and gush about Chapter 13. That's all I'm really here for. So thanks for watching. Subscribe to Mithril Zenith.
Oh,
You've been
definitely.
great.
Thanks for doing the CTA for me. You have a good night, and thank you all for watching again. Yeah, hope you enjoyed the video. If you made it all the way to the end, congratulations. You probably fell asleep somewhere, and might just be waking up and be like, "How did I get to this video?" Even if that's
Oh
the case,
no.
still appreciate it. Thank you so
Yeah.
much. This is Mr. Zenith signing out.